The buzzing of the phone broke the stillness in the Tesla headquarters. Elon Musk, who had been deeply absorbed in reviewing a new set of data for Tesla's latest project, looked up. His finger hovered over the screen, unlocking the device. It wasn't an email. It wasn't a text message. It was a company alert, something he rarely paid attention to, but today, for some reason, he clicked on it. Top engineer from Tesla moves to Rivian. The words hit him like a punch in the gut. He stared at the screen, reading it again. A top engineer, Nathan Carter, had left Tesla. Not just any engineer, but a key player in Tesla's powertrain department, one of the brilliant minds who had contributed to some of the company's most successful models. Now, he was working for Rivian, Tesla's competitor. The notification didn't go into detail. It was brief, almost clinical, but it was enough. Nathan Carter, a name Elon knew well, had joined Rivian, the very company Tesla had been watching closely for the past few years. Elon felt a mix of confusion and disbelief, but there was also something else. A spark of anger, a sharp twist of betrayal. Why would Nathan leave? What was so wrong that he had to walk away from Tesla? Nathan was a brilliant engineer, with a sharp mind for problem-solving and a passion for electric vehicles. He had joined Tesla fresh out of MIT and had risen through the ranks quickly. Elon had personally hand-picked him to work on several high-profile projects. His decision to leave wasn't just a loss for the company, it was a personal blow. Elon prided himself on cultivating a unique company culture, one that was more family than business. This betrayal felt like a failure of leadership. Was it something I missed? He leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Tesla was always at the cutting edge of innovation, but Rivian had been making headlines recently with their own impressive line of electric trucks and SUVs. Elon had expected fierce competition from them, but he hadn't expected it to come from within his own ranks. What happened? Elon's fingers hovered over his phone as he debated whether to make a call or not. But before he could reach for his desk phone, a knock at the door interrupted his train of thought. "Mr. Musk," said Robin, his assistant. "There's someone here to see you. They say it's urgent." Elon's mind was already racing with 1,000 questions, but he nodded. "Send them in." A moment later, the door opened, and Nathan walked in. Elon didn't need to be told who it was. Nathan's presence, tall and confident, was unmistakable. But something about the way Nathan was walking, slightly tense, avoiding eye contact, made Elon's stomach drop. He hadn't expected to see him here so soon. "Hello, Elon," Nathan said, his voice calm, but the tension in the air was palpable. Elon stood up, pushing the phone aside. He didn't smile, didn't extend a hand. Instead, he let his words hang in the air like a question. "You've made quite an impression, Nathan. I see you've joined Rivian." Nathan's eyes flickered briefly, but he remained calm. "I have," he replied, his tone steady. "I wanted to speak to you before things get out of hand." Elon raised an eyebrow. "Out of hand? What does that mean?" Nathan sighed, sitting down across from him. There was an uncomfortable silence before he spoke again. "I didn't leave because I wanted to hurt Tesla, Elon. But things here weren't working for me anymore." Elon's heart raced. He had known Nathan for years. The man had dedicated his life to Tesla. To hear that he'd left because things weren't working hit harder than anything he had imagined. "What do you mean? You were one of the best we had. What happened?" Nathan hesitated for a moment, collecting his thoughts. It wasn't just one thing. It was the direction Tesla was taking. The pressure, the lack of personal space, the endless grind. "I needed something different. Rivian offered that." Elon's grip on the edge of his desk tightened. "The pressure? The grind? Is that what this is about?" "I understand," Elon said, his voice colder than he intended. "But did you really think leaving for Rivian was the answer? You know how this works. You were with us at the beginning, Nathan. You knew what we were building. Nathan's eyes softened for a moment. I know. And I respect what Tesla has done, but sometimes, Elon, you need a change of scenery to see things clearly. Rivian represents something new, something that challenges everything we've been doing. And that's exactly what I needed. Elon stared at him. The weight of the words hung heavy in the room. A challenge? A change of scenery? Nathan wasn't done. But I didn't want to leave on bad terms. I'm not here to badmouth Tesla. I just needed to go where I could feel like I was making a real difference again. Elon exhaled, the tension still thick between them. Nathan's words stung, but deep down, Elon knew he couldn't blame him for wanting more. They were both visionaries, driven by the need to change the world. But this felt like betrayal. I see, Elon muttered. And Rivian gave you that? Nathan nodded, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of uncertainty, maybe regret. They did. But I still respect everything Tesla stands for. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what you've built, Elon. Elon ran a hand through his hair, still processing. He knew Nathan had been a key player in some of Tesla's most groundbreaking work. To lose someone like him, especially to Rivian, felt like a huge blow. But there was also something about Nathan's demeanor that made Elon think there was more to the story than he was letting on. Why are you here? Elon asked, his voice sharp. I want to help, Nathan said, leaning forward slightly. Not as an employee, but as someone who believes in the mission. I want to help Tesla navigate through this. To find the balance between innovation and the human cost of progress. I know that sounds idealistic, but it's the truth. Elon was silent for a long moment, weighing Nathan's words. Could he really trust someone who had left Tesla behind? Could he really ask someone who had gone to Rivian to come back and help? As much as Elon hated to admit it, Nathan's words had sparked something inside him. Tesla had been pushing the limits for so long, but had they lost sight of the very thing that made them great? Innovation didn't just come from pushing harder, it came from understanding when to change direction. Elon knew he couldn't make any decision now, but he also knew one thing for sure, the game was changing. The electric vehicle world was evolving faster than ever, and it wasn't just about competition anymore. It was about finding new ways to keep pushing the boundaries. I'll think about what you said, Elon finally replied, his voice quiet but resolute. But don't expect anything to be easy. I don't forget betrayals. Nathan stood, nodding. I didn't expect you to. But I'm still here, if you need me. With that, Nathan turned and left, leaving Elon alone with his thoughts. The door closed behind him, but the words lingered in Elon's mind, like a seed planted deep inside him. Could Nathan be the key to something bigger than just Tesla? For the first time in a long while, Elon wasn't so sure about the path ahead. But one thing was clear, Rivian wasn't just Tesla's competitor anymore. It was a wake-up call. And that call was only just beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The next morning, Elon found himself staring at his computer screen, half-heartedly sifting through emails that, on any other day, would demand his immediate attention. Yet, his thoughts kept drifting back to Nathan Carter, his former star engineer who had just walked out of Tesla's doors. Why would Nathan leave? And what had happened to him in the years he had been with Tesla that led to this? Elon's fingers typed the name, Nathan Carter, into his search bar. The first result was a LinkedIn profile, which Elon had already seen many times before. Nathan's resume was impeccable, MIT graduate, top of his class, fast-tracked into Tesla's most coveted engineering projects. But something about it seemed too polished. There had to be more. So, he clicked through to the next link, an article from a tech magazine about Nathan's departure from Tesla and his unexpected move to Rivian. The piece was short, but it offered a glimpse into Nathan's mindset. The title read, "Nathan Carter Leaves Tesla for Rivian, the Unlikely Story of a Visionary Engineer Who Wanted More." The article touched on the typical points: his career at Tesla, his role in the development of the Model 3's powertrain, and his rise to one of the company's most sought-after engineers. But what stuck with Elon was a single sentence: buried deep in the piece, Nathan Carter had become increasingly disillusioned with the culture at Tesla, its relentless pace and the feeling that his creative vision was no longer valued. Elon leaned back in his chair. Relentless pace. That was the nature of the job at Tesla. They worked tirelessly to push the boundaries of technology, to bring electric vehicles to the masses in a way that was impossible to ignore. That was their mission. So what had changed? To understand Nathan's departure, Elon knew he needed to learn more about the man behind the resume. He had a few options. He could talk to Nathan's colleagues at Tesla, but that might only fuel the fire of resentment. No, Elon thought, he needed to hear Nathan's side directly. He needed to know what led to this moment of defection, not just from Tesla, but from everything he had worked so hard to build. With that in mind, Elon decided to dig deeper. He reached out to an old friend from MIT, a professor who had taught both him and Nathan. The two of them had stayed in touch over the years, and Elon hoped the professor could shed some light on Nathan's background before he ever set foot in Tesla. The professor, Dr. William Grant, answered Elon's call with his usual warm, yet measured tone. "Elon, it's been a while. I assume you have something important to discuss." "Yes, actually. It's about Nathan Carter. I need to know more about him, especially before his time at Tesla. I have to understand what led him to leave." There was a pause on the other end, followed by a sigh. "Nathan was one of my brightest students. He was always ahead of the curve, a true visionary. But he was also different, even back then. He wasn't just driven by success or recognition, he wanted to make a real impact. He didn't care about the limelight, he wanted to change the world." Elon nodded as he listened. It sounded like the Nathan he had known at Tesla. But what had happened? Why would someone like that leave? Dr. Grant continued. "Nathan came to me once, during his last year. He said he wanted to change the world with energy, to help revolutionize the way people thought about power and transportation. He was always idealistic, sometimes to the point of frustration. He felt limited by the constraints of traditional engineering, even back then. But he had this intense drive to make something bigger, something that could stand the test of time." Elon paused. "Did he ever talk about leaving Tesla?" "I didn't expect it," Dr. Grant said. "But he'd always been hesitant to settle. Tesla's culture, while great for many, might have been too much for someone like Nathan. He wasn't the kind of person who could be pigeonholed into one narrow path. That's the problem with brilliant minds, sometimes they're too big for the boxes we try to put them in." The conversation lingered in Elon's mind as he hung up. Nathan wasn't the first person to feel overwhelmed by Tesla's fast-paced culture, but it felt different with him. Elon had always prided himself on creating an environment where innovation thrived, but maybe Nathan's departure was a sign of something deeper, something he hadn't seen before. As the day wore on, Elon found himself revisiting his own past. He thought about the early days of Tesla, the struggle to stay afloat, the times when every dollar counted, when the world wasn't convinced that electric cars could ever replace the gasoline-powered engines that had dominated the roads for over a century. But he had pushed through. He had believed in the vision, in the promise of change, and in the future of sustainable energy. But somewhere along the way, had Tesla lost touch with the very ideals that had fueled its creation? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his assistant's voice. "Mr. Musk, your meeting with the board is scheduled for 2 p.m. Are you ready?" Elon blinked, pulling himself back into the present moment. He had a decision to make. He could either continue to let Nathan's departure eat away at him, or he could take action. He could reach out to Nathan directly, offer him a chance to return, and find out what truly went wrong. But could he trust someone who had left for Rivian, a company that seemed to be challenging everything Tesla had worked for? Elon felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The path ahead was unclear, and that uncertainty gnawed at him. But there was one thing he knew for sure: Nathan Carter wasn't just any engineer. He was a visionary, and visionaries didn't simply disappear. With a deep breath, Elon opened his email and typed a message to Nathan. Subject: Let's talk. Nathan. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation yesterday. I want to understand what happened, why you left Tesla, and why you chose Rivian. There's a lot at stake here, and I think we both have a lot to gain from a candid discussion. Let me know when you're available. Elon. He hit send, hoping that Nathan would respond. The world of electric vehicles was changing rapidly, and if Elon was going to keep Tesla at the forefront, he needed all the help he could get. Even if that help came from someone who had once walked away. Elon sat at his desk, fingers drumming absent-mindedly on the edge of his laptop. The message to Nathan had been sent hours ago, and he was waiting for a reply, though a part of him didn't expect it to come quickly. After all, Nathan had made his decision to leave. He wasn't likely to return just because Elon sent a polite email. Still, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Nathan's departure than met the eye. It wasn't just about the pressures of working at Tesla, or the relentless pace of innovation. There was something deeper, something personal, that had caused Nathan to walk away. Elon's mind kept circling back to the conversation with Dr. Grant, his old professor from MIT. Nathan had always been someone who sought meaning beyond the work. Could it be that Tesla's relentless drive for progress had finally worn him down? As the afternoon wore on, Elon finally received an email notification. He opened it almost immediately. Subject: Let's talk. Elon. I appreciate the outreach. I've been thinking about our conversation too. I'll be in Palo Alto tomorrow for a meeting with the Rivian team. How about we meet at 10 a.m.? Nathan. Elon read the email once more, then closed his laptop. Tomorrow. He hadn't expected Nathan to agree to meet so quickly. There was a part of him that felt relief, but another part, one that had been stewing in frustration for days, was nervous. Could he really trust Nathan again? The next morning, Elon arrived at the small cafe just outside the Rivian office in Palo Alto, just a few blocks from Tesla's headquarters. The place was quiet, tucked between a couple of boutique stores. It seemed like a good place for a neutral ground meeting. Elon had never been one to indulge in too much small talk, but today felt different. The air between him and Nathan was thick with unspoken words, and Elon needed answers. At exactly 10 a.m., the door of the cafe opened, and Nathan walked in. He looked a little different than Elon remembered. His hair was shorter, his face more serious, but there was no mistaking the same intensity in his eyes. Nathan glanced around the room before his gaze landed on Elon. He gave a brief nod and made his way over to the table. Thanks for meeting with me, Elon said, gesturing for Nathan to sit. Nathan nodded but didn't immediately speak. The silence between them felt heavy, and it wasn't until the barista came over with their coffees that Nathan finally broke it. I wasn't sure you'd actually reach out, Nathan said, taking a sip of his drink. But I'm glad you did. Elon leaned back in his chair. I'm not one to let things linger, especially when it comes to people who mattered to Tesla. But I'll be honest, Nathan. I don't understand. You were one of the best. You were part of the dream. So, why leave? Nathan's eyes softened, but there was still an edge of defensiveness in his voice when he replied. It wasn't about the company, Elon. At least, not entirely. It was more about where I saw myself going. About what kind of impact I wanted to make. Elon narrowed his eyes slightly. Impact? You don't think Tesla was making an impact? Of course, Tesla has changed the world, Nathan replied quickly. You've done things no one thought were possible. I admire that. But after a while, I started to wonder if I was really contributing to that change. The longer I stayed, the more I realized I wasn't creating the future I wanted to see. I wasn't making the kind of breakthrough that gets people to rethink everything. Elon sat up straighter, his interest piqued. So, you're telling me you weren't able to make a difference at Tesla? Nathan's gaze flickered. It's not that simple. I felt like I was being confined. There were always boundaries, whether it was because of timelines, finances, or even how certain people wanted things done. I needed to explore a different path, something that felt less constrained by the corporate side of things. Rivian gave me that opportunity. Elon listened, digesting Nathan's words. It was clear that Nathan wasn't rejecting Tesla's mission altogether, he was rejecting the limitations that he felt had come to define it. Rivian, as a smaller company with a different culture, allowed Nathan more freedom to innovate, to push the boundaries in a way that Tesla, with its own massive machinery, couldn't. But Elon wasn't ready to let him off the hook just yet. But why Rivian? Why not stay in the industry and continue to build what Tesla had started? If you wanted to make a difference, why go to a direct competitor? That's a betrayal of everything we've worked for. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. I didn't leave because I hated Tesla. I left because I wanted to break free from the shackles of competition. I wanted to work in a place where we could really think about the future of electric mobility, not just win against the competition. Rivian isn't just about making vehicles that beat Tesla. They're about changing the entire ecosystem, the way we think about transportation, energy, and even how we build relationships with the world around us. That's what I want to be a part of. The words hit Elon harder than expected. Changing the entire ecosystem. It was the same mission Tesla had started with, but had he, too, become consumed by competition and progress to the point where he lost sight of the bigger picture? Elon took a deep breath, a thought forming in his mind. So, you didn't leave because you didn't believe in Tesla's mission. You left because you felt you couldn't push the limits further here, because we were too focused on beating everyone else instead of truly transforming the world. Nathan nodded, his face serious. Exactly. Tesla was my home, but I needed to grow beyond it. I needed to prove to myself that I could still challenge my own ideas about what's possible, and Rivian gave me the space to do that. There was a long pause as both men processed the weight of the conversation. For the first time, Elon felt the full weight of Nathan's decision, but also understood it in a way he hadn't before. It wasn't about betraying Tesla, it was about personal growth. About the pursuit of something greater than competition. Elon broke the silence. So, what now? Rivian's path is their own. But you know as well as I do that Tesla still has a lot to give. We can still change the world, Nathan. It's not too late. Nathan met his gaze, and for the first time in their conversation, Elon saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Maybe, Nathan said quietly. But maybe you need to change the way you see it, too. Elon leaned back in his chair, mulling over Nathan's words. He had spent years pushing Tesla to be the best. But was that enough? Could they truly change the world if they were simply focused on outpacing their competitors? There was a lot of work to be done. The journey was far from over. But now, Elon knew that his mission had to evolve, not just for Tesla's survival, but for the future he had always dreamed of. And perhaps Nathan, in his own way, had just given him the push he needed. The meeting with Nathan lingered in Elon's mind for the rest of the day. The words exchanged between them weren't easily forgotten. It wasn't just the fact that Nathan had left, or even the reasons behind his decision. It was the realization that, despite the years of success Tesla had accumulated, Elon himself might have missed something crucial, the very core of why they started the company in the first place. Later that evening, as Elon walked through the Tesla campus in Palo Alto, he felt a sense of discomfort. The usual buzz of engineers, designers, and executives hustling through the hallways seemed almost too frenetic. The walls that were once filled with vision and passion now felt like barriers, each one reinforced by deadlines and projections. Maybe Nathan was right, he muttered to himself. Tesla had become a juggernaut, a machine that couldn't stop moving, but somewhere along the way, it might have forgotten why it had started moving in the first place. As Elon sat in his office, reflecting on his conversation with Nathan, he felt a wave of frustration. It wasn't the kind of frustration that came from a failed project or an underperforming team, it was deeper. It was the kind of frustration that comes and you realize that the destination you've been racing toward might not be the one you wanted after all. A ping from his phone interrupted his thoughts. It was a message from Gwynne Shotwell, the president and COO of SpaceX. She had been working closely with Elon for years and was one of the few people who truly understood the immense pressure of balancing multiple groundbreaking companies. Elon, we need to talk. I've been hearing rumors that Rivian is looking to pull ahead of us with their upcoming vehicle line. I think it's time we meet to discuss Tesla's strategy moving forward. This might be our biggest challenge yet. Elon sighed. Even here, at SpaceX, he couldn't escape the pressure of the competition. He typed a quick reply. I know. Let's meet tomorrow afternoon. I've been thinking about things, Tesla's direction, Rivian, everything. We'll need a new approach, and soon. Elon didn't want to admit it, but something about Rivian's progress unsettled him. They were building cars that were stunningly innovative, with design and technology that could rival Tesla's. The company had a different approach, a different philosophy, and even a different sense of purpose. While Tesla was known for its relentless race to push the envelope of electric vehicles, Rivian was taking a more holistic approach to energy and sustainability. And Nathan, the brilliant mind who had left Tesla, was at the heart of it. The thought gnawed at Elon. Was Rivian's success the key to unlocking something he hadn't yet seen? The next morning, Elon took a flight to the SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne. The anticipation of the meeting with Gwynne shot through him, though he still couldn't shake the feeling of doubt that had lingered since his meeting with Nathan. Rivian's model, while still relatively new, had the potential to disrupt everything Tesla had built. The meeting room was sterile, with white walls and sleek furniture, but the tension in the air was palpable. Gwynne was waiting for him, her arms crossed as she paced back and forth. Elon, you're late. This is serious, she said, the urgency in her tone unmistakable. I know, Elon replied. I've been thinking about this for a while now. About Rivian? She asked, raising an eyebrow. About everything. About Tesla. About how we've been moving forward for the last few years. Gwynne stopped pacing, looking at him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Elon, we've made enormous progress. Tesla is leading the electric car revolution, and the world is finally starting to wake up to the importance of sustainability. What's changed? Elon's mind flickered back to his conversation with Nathan. The young engineer had pointed out that Tesla's culture was too focused on competition, too focused on winning, and in doing so, they may have lost sight of something far more important, the mission. It's not about winning anymore, Elon said slowly. It's about changing the entire game. And if we keep going down the path we're on now, we might not be the ones who define the future. We'll just be a footnote. Gwynne looked at him with a frown. Are you saying we're losing our edge? No, Elon replied quickly, I'm saying that we need to redefine our edge. Tesla was built on the idea of revolutionizing energy and transportation. But maybe we've gotten too caught up in proving we're the best, instead of ensuring that we're the ones creating the future everyone will want to follow. Gwynne's expression softened as she realized the weight of what Elon was saying. So what's the plan? I'm not sure yet, Elon admitted. But we need to start thinking differently. Tesla isn't just a car company. It's a movement. We need to reconnect with the heart of that movement. He paused, as if the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together in his mind. I think I need to meet with Nathan again. I think he's onto something. Gwynne raised an eyebrow. You're not serious. Elon said firmly. Nathan has a vision. One that's broader than just electric vehicles. I think if we can come together, Tesla, Rivian, SpaceX, we can change the world in ways none of us can do on our own. Gwyn stared at him for a long moment before speaking. You really believe that, don't you? I have to, Elon replied, his voice resolute. If we're going to change the world, we need to stop focusing on who's ahead and start thinking about what's next. That's the future. The words hung in the air as the meeting ended, but Elon felt something inside him shift. There was a sense of urgency now, a realization that this wasn't just about staying competitive. It was about leading the world in a direction that no one had expected. And to do that, he might need to work with those who had once been rivals. As he walked out of the meeting room, Elon couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. It was no longer just about Tesla. It was about a future that included Rivian, SpaceX, and anyone else who was willing to innovate for a better world. Perhaps, just perhaps, Nathan was the key to making it all happen. The days following his meeting with Gwyn were a whirlwind of activity. Elon had always operated at a breakneck pace, but this new urgency, the feeling that something significant was on the horizon, kept him up at night. It wasn't just the pressure of staying ahead of competitors like Rivian or even the looming challenges at Tesla, it was the desire to find a new direction, one that could change the course of history. Elon's thoughts kept returning to Nathan. There was a clarity in Nathan's words during their last conversation, about the importance of seeing beyond the confines of competition, about focusing on the bigger picture. Rivian wasn't just trying to build a better vehicle, they were trying to build a better future. And Tesla, as innovative and successful as it was dangerously close to losing sight of that larger vision. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Elon reached out to Nathan again. This time, the message wasn't just an invitation to talk, it was a proposition. Nathan, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. There's something we can do together, something bigger than either of our companies. We need to meet again. Let's make it happen. Nathan's response came quickly. I've been waiting for you to say that. Let's meet at the Rivian campus tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I think it's time we discuss what comes next. Elon knew he had to take this opportunity seriously. It was more than just reconnecting with an old colleague. This meeting could be the beginning of something monumental, something that could reshape the entire electric vehicle and energy landscape. Rivian and Tesla had always been competitors, but now, there was a chance to create something far more impactful by working together. The next morning, Elon drove down to Rivian's headquarters in Plymouth, Michigan. He could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on him as he approached the sleek, modern campus. The Rivian brand had become synonymous with adventure, sustainability, and the kind of bold thinking that Tesla had once embodied. Elon parked his car and made his way inside, where he was greeted by Nathan in the lobby. Nathan's demeanor was calm, his usual intensity replaced by a sense of quiet anticipation. He led Elon to a conference room, where the two of them sat across from each other. The room was filled with large screens displaying blueprints of future vehicles, energy solutions, and even plans for global sustainability projects. Rivian was already ahead of Tesla in some areas, especially in the realm of off-road electric vehicles. But it wasn't just about the cars anymore, it was about a shared vision of how to change the world. I've been thinking about what you said, Elon, Nathan began as he sat down. We've been focused on the wrong things for too long. Rivian's mission isn't just to make great vehicles, it's about redefining how we think about transportation, energy, and the world we want to build for the next generation. Elon nodded. I've been feeling the same way. Tesla has been pushing hard, but sometimes, we get too wrapped up in being the first, the best, or the most efficient. We lose sight of the bigger picture. Nathan leaned forward, his eyes shining with conviction. Exactly. If we only focus on beating the competition, we'll miss the chance to lead a revolution. We need to think about how we can create an ecosystem, a holistic solution that brings all the pieces together. Cars, energy, infrastructure, even the way we work with the communities around us. It's about more than just technology. It's about shifting the way people live. Elon paused, letting Nathan's words sink in. This wasn't just talk. Nathan believed every word, and Elon could feel the spark of inspiration reignite within him. I agree, Elon said finally, his voice low but filled with determination. But how do we get there? How do we move past the competition and create something that's truly groundbreaking? Nathan smiled. By building partnerships. By bringing together the best minds in the industry, not just within our companies, but across the world. We need to collaborate with others who are aligned with our mission, people who understand that we're not just building cars or batteries, we're building a new world. Elon's mind raced. You're suggesting a collaboration between Tesla and Rivian, but on a much larger scale. What if we brought in other companies, too? Not just automakers, but energy companies, tech startups, anyone with a vested interest in creating a sustainable future. Nathan's eyes sparkled with excitement. Exactly. If we create an open platform for innovation, where the goal isn't to compete for market share, but to share ideas, technologies, and resources, we could change the world. Imagine an ecosystem of electric vehicles, solar energy solutions, smart grids, and more. It's not just about driving down costs, it's about changing the way the world consumes energy, moves people, and creates value. Elon sat back, the weight of Nathan's proposal settling on him. This wasn't just a business strategy. It was a new way of thinking, a way of thinking that required humility, collaboration, and a willingness to let go of old rivalries. Elon had always believed that technology had the power to change the world, but now he saw that it wasn't just about building the best products. It was about building the right partnerships. I've spent years trying to outpace everyone else, Elon said, his voice softer now. But what if the real breakthrough isn't in beating the competition, but in joining forces with them? What if we create something bigger than all of us? Nathan's smile widened. That's exactly what I've been trying to tell you. The rest of the meeting was spent mapping out a plan, an ambitious, audacious plan that would involve not only Tesla and Rivian but also other like-minded companies in the fields of energy, technology, and sustainability. They talked about the need for an integrated infrastructure, about sharing battery technology, and about creating a new standard for energy consumption that could be adopted worldwide. They even discussed the idea of a global summit, bringing together leaders from all industries to discuss how to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. By the time the meeting ended, Elon felt like a new door had opened. It wasn't just about electric cars anymore. It was about reshaping the very way society operated, from the ground up. This wasn't just a business opportunity, it was a chance to change the future, to leave a legacy that went beyond innovation. As he left the Rivian campus, Elon felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to happen overnight. But the road ahead was clearer than ever before. The future, it seemed, was not about competing to be the best. It was about working together to create a world that was better for everyone. The idea of collaboration was revolutionary. In Elon's world, competition was the driving force, outpacing others, innovating faster, and constantly seeking ways to do things better than anyone else. But Nathan's vision had cracked open a new perspective, one where Tesla and Rivian, competitors in the electric vehicle space, could combine forces to create something far greater than what they could accomplish alone. The first step was a series of meetings that stretched across days, and even weeks. Elon and Nathan worked tirelessly, gathering their teams to flesh out the details of the vision they shared. But it wasn't just about the vehicles anymore. They spoke about integrating infrastructure, creating new energy grids, and exploring ways to reshape the global supply chain in a more sustainable direction. Every department, every engineer, every designer at both Tesla and Rivian began collaborating on a massive scale. People who had once viewed each other as competitors now saw each other as allies. The shift in mindset was palpable, even inspiring. Elon sat with his leadership team at Tesla's Palo Alto headquarters one Friday afternoon, looking out across the campus. The usual bustling hum of activity filled the air, but today, there was an undercurrent of excitement, a sense of anticipation that had been missing for some time. "Okay," Elon started, standing up to address the room. "We're about to embark on something bigger than just making great cars. Tesla has always been at the forefront of this revolution, but if we want to change the future, we need to bring Rivian in. We need to bring more companies in. And we need to think beyond what we've been doing." He glanced at the team, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Some were eager for the challenge, while others were uncertain about what this new direction would mean for their roles within the company. "We'll be working together to create an ecosystem," Elon continued, pacing back and forth. "Not just in terms of vehicles but everything. Charging stations, energy grids, battery storage, you name it. We're building a platform for a sustainable future, one that isn't just about creating the best electric cars but about creating an entirely new way of living." One of the senior engineers raised his hand. "Elon, this is huge. It's not just about technology anymore. How are we going to manage all these relationships with Rivian, SpaceX, and other companies? It sounds like we're shifting into a much broader, more complex ecosystem." Elon nodded, acknowledging the concern. "I know it's a lot, but the world is changing faster than we can keep up. If we don't lead this charge, someone else will. Tesla and Rivian together can be the foundation, but we need to bring others who are already innovating in renewable energy, clean tech, and more. It's going to take a village, but it's the only way forward." The room grew quiet as the weight of Elon's words settled in. They were entering uncharted waters. This was no longer just about making cars or selling energy storage solutions, it was about changing the very fabric of the economy, reshaping industries, and creating a new model for the future. Meanwhile, at Rivian's headquarters, Nathan and his team were equally energized. The initial meeting between Tesla and Rivian had sparked a wave of optimism. Ideas began flowing like electricity through the wires of their collaborative effort. But just like Tesla, Rivian had its own set of challenges. While the company had made great strides in developing innovative vehicles, the scale and infrastructure necessary to achieve their vision of a sustainable future required more than just cutting-edge cars. Nathan sat with his chief engineer, Olivia, in their design lab, staring at the sketches for their next-generation electric truck. "This is good. Really good," he said, tapping the blueprint with his pen. "But if we're going to truly change the game, we need to do more than just produce electric vehicles. We need to integrate energy solutions, solar power, grid storage, smart home integration, things that can power the future." Olivia looked up from her laptop. "You're talking about an ecosystem, right?" Nathan smiled. "Exactly. And Tesla's on the same page. We need to bring everything together in a way that makes it all work in harmony. Imagine a home that's completely off the grid, powered by solar, charged by electric vehicles, and using energy storage systems that integrate seamlessly into the community. It's not just about selling products, it's about creating a lifestyle, a movement." They spent the next few hours discussing how their energy products, vehicles, and technology could become interconnected. Each Rivian vehicle could serve as a mobile energy hub, linking to homes, businesses, and charging stations. By combining their technology with Tesla's solar city systems and energy storage solutions, the two companies could create a fully integrated energy ecosystem. It was ambitious. It was bold. But if they succeeded, it would change the world. Back in Palo Alto, Elon's phone buzzed with a message from Gwynne Shotwell, president of SpaceX. She had been a sounding board throughout the entire process, offering her insights and guidance on how to structure their partnerships. "Elon, I've been following your conversations with Nathan. I think you're onto something. SpaceX can play a crucial role here too. We have a lot of experience with long-term sustainability projects. Mars isn't going to terraform itself. Let's talk about how SpaceX could be involved in this grand vision. Elon read the message and smiled. Gwyn had always been a realist, but she was also a visionary in her own right. SpaceX had a unique perspective on the future of energy and sustainability, and their work in space exploration could lend valuable insight into how humanity could better use energy resources. If SpaceX joined the fold, the initiative would not only be grounded on Earth but could also be a launching pad for space-based energy solutions. He quickly typed a response. Absolutely, Gwyn. Let's set up a meeting. We'll need all the expertise we can get if we're going to pull this off. As the next few weeks passed, the three companies, Tesla, Rivian, and SpaceX, began meeting more regularly, aligning their goals and strategies for this ambitious new venture. They brought in experts from various fields, energy consultants, economists, environmental scientists, and even urban planners. The goal was clear: create a world where energy, transportation, and sustainability were not isolated industries but interconnected solutions. The idea of sustainable ecosystems began to take shape. These ecosystems would extend beyond electric vehicles. They would encompass everything from energy storage systems to solar panels, from smart homes to community-driven infrastructure. The aim was to create a world where every aspect of daily life could be powered by clean, renewable energy and interconnected technologies. Elon had always dreamed of changing the world, but now, he realized, he wasn't doing it alone. Rivian, SpaceX, and others would join forces to create a future that wasn't just about winning a race but about reshaping society for generations to come. As the weeks passed, the collaboration between Tesla, Rivian, and SpaceX began to take root. The concept of a unified ecosystem started to grow beyond the realm of theory and into a tangible project. Engineers, designers, and business leaders from all three companies worked in tandem, sharing their expertise, resources, and ideas. They were not just competitors anymore. They were co-creators, building a future that transcended traditional boundaries. Elon sat at the head of a large conference table in Tesla's headquarters, surrounded by a mix of engineers, executives, and experts from Rivian and SpaceX. The energy in the room was palpable, a blend of enthusiasm and nervous anticipation. Everyone knew the stakes. If they succeeded, they would alter the course of history. But if they failed, they would risk losing everything. Elon stood up and addressed the room, his usual intensity evident but tempered with a new sense of calm. We are building more than just cars, more than just energy solutions. We are creating a network, a blueprint for the future. We have a rare opportunity to shape the world. Let's not waste it. Nathan, sitting across from Elon, nodded in agreement. We've been talking about energy ecosystems, but it's time to define what that actually means. We need to think about the technology that underpins this, what's going to make it sustainable and scalable. It's not just about charging stations and vehicles. It's about data, automation, and artificial intelligence that can help manage these systems and make them more efficient. Elon glanced at Gwyn, who had joined the meeting via video conference. She had been quiet until now, but her presence in the room was always felt. "What are your thoughts, Gwyn?" he asked. Gwyn smiled before responding. "You're all thinking in the right direction. What you're proposing is more than just an energy solution, it's an entire infrastructure. SpaceX's work with satellite networks could be crucial. Imagine if we could connect this entire ecosystem through space-based technology, offering connectivity and data sharing that transcends borders. It's not just about the terrestrial grid anymore. It's about building a global network that can harness the power of the sun, the wind, and even the moon." Her words hit the room like a lightning bolt. The idea of a space-based energy network, leveraging SpaceX's satellite technology to create a global energy grid, was audacious but entirely within reach. Elon's eyes lit up. That's the kind of thinking that will push this project into the stratosphere. If we can create a decentralized energy grid, using satellites and space technology to connect remote areas and underserved communities, will be able to bring clean, renewable energy to every corner of the world. The room buzzed with excitement. It was no longer just a question of competing to build the best electric vehicle, it was about creating a system that could transform the way energy was used and distributed on a global scale. The team immediately broke into smaller groups, brainstorming and outlining plans for everything from the satellite network to advanced AI systems that could optimize energy consumption in real time. Meanwhile, across the country in Rivian's headquarters, Nathan and his team were in the middle of a design sprint. The idea of a connected ecosystem was starting to take form, and the team was focused on making sure that Rivian's vehicles could seamlessly integrate into this network. Olivia, the chief engineer, was leading the charge on developing the next-generation electric truck, one that would not only perform off-road but also serve as a key piece of the renewable energy puzzle. What if we could design vehicles that act as mobile energy hubs? Nathan suggested during one of their strategy meetings. They wouldn't just be for transporting people, they could be used to store and distribute energy wherever it's needed. You could have vehicles that, when they're not in use, are charging homes or sending power back into the grid. Olivia nodded. We've been exploring that idea already. If we integrate vehicle-to-grid, V2G, technology, we could use Rivian trucks as mobile power sources for homes, businesses, or even emergency services. A fully charged Rivian vehicle could provide power for a home for days, or even weeks, depending on the battery capacity. And we could link all of this to the larger energy grid, controlled and optimized by AI. The implications were profound. Vehicles could become more than just modes of transportation, they could be tools for ensuring energy security, reducing reliance on traditional grids, and providing backup power during outages or natural disasters. This was a radical departure from the current automotive industry, where vehicles were seen as isolated products with little connection to the greater system. Rivian's trucks, and eventually other electric vehicles, could serve as active participants in the energy ecosystem, making them not just environmentally friendly, but indispensable to the functioning of communities. Back at Tesla, Elon and Gwyn had been discussing the AI infrastructure that would power the entire network. It was clear that the success of the project hinged on the ability to manage and optimize the flow of energy, data, and resources across the ecosystem. We need an AI system that can monitor the entire grid in real time, Elon said, his mind racing with possibilities. One that can predict energy demand, optimize storage, and dynamically allocate resources based on location, weather, and usage patterns. We could even use AI to enhance vehicle performance and adjust charging times to minimize grid congestion. Gwyn's screen flickered as she processed the idea. And with SpaceX's satellite network, we could have real-time data on global energy consumption and production. We could even help nations with emerging economies leapfrog over the traditional grid infrastructure and jump straight into renewable energy. Elon smiled. Exactly. This isn't just about creating a green solution for today. It's about building a sustainable future for tomorrow. As the weeks turned into months, the momentum behind the project grew. The combined efforts of Tesla, Rivian, and SpaceX were beginning to pay off. The first prototypes of the mobile energy hub vehicles were being tested, and the satellite network that would power the global energy grid was beginning to take shape. The companies were also in talks with governments, energy providers, and non-profit organizations to ensure that the new infrastructure would be accessible to everyone, regardless of location or economic status. Elon stood before a large display in Tesla's design lab one afternoon, looking over the progress that had been made. He had always been a dreamer, but now, with the support of Nathan, Gwyn, and their teams, he was beginning to see the reality of his vision. "This is bigger than I ever imagined," he said, his voice filled with awe. "We're not just building products, we're changing the way people live. We're creating a future that's powered by clean energy, where transportation and infrastructure work together to improve the quality of life for everyone." Nathan, who had joined him in the lab, placed a hand on his shoulder. "We're just getting started." As they continued to push forward, the world began to take notice. News of the Tesla-Rivian SpaceX collaboration spread like wildfire, attracting attention from investors, policymakers, and the public alike. It was clear that the new initiative was no longer just a business venture, it was a movement. And it was only a matter of time before the rest of the world would have to catch up. But for Elon, Nathan, and Gwyn, the work was far from over. They knew that the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges. But as they looked ahead to the future, they could see that the possibilities were endless. Together, they were building something that would not only change the way people lived but the way they thought about the world itself. And in the end, that was the greatest power of all. As the months progressed, the collaboration between Tesla, Rivian, and SpaceX gained momentum, but so did the complexity of their mission. What initially seemed like a promising venture, a unified effort to change the world's energy and transportation systems, was beginning to reveal the challenges that often accompany such ambitious goals. The three companies, though united in vision, were still very much distinct entities, each with their own cultures, values, and priorities. Elon had always thrived in the high-stakes world of innovation, where every challenge was an opportunity to push the boundaries further. But this time, the stakes felt different. The weight of transforming not just a company or an industry but the entire global infrastructure was heavy, and Elon knew that failure was no longer an option. In one of the strategy sessions at Tesla's headquarters, the room was tense. The atmosphere was thick with the realization that not all the ideas they had been working on would seamlessly translate into reality. "We've hit a roadblock with the vehicle-to-grid (V2G) technology," Olivia, Rivian's chief engineer, began, her voice calm but serious. "The integration with Tesla's energy storage systems is more complicated than we anticipated. There are compatibility issues with the software that control the energy flow, and it's causing instability in the system. If we can't solve this, the whole ecosystem concept might fall apart." The room fell silent. Elon leaned forward, his brow furrowed. This wasn't just a technical issue, it was a fundamental hurdle that threatened the core of their entire vision. If their electric vehicles couldn't reliably serve as energy hubs, it would be a massive setback. "We can't afford delays," Elon said, his voice steady but sharp. "I want every engineer working on this. We need to fix this and fix it fast. Think about it like this, we're not just designing cars. We're designing the future." Nathan stood up, pacing around the room. "What if we brought in a third-party developer to help with the software?" he suggested. "We might be too close to the problem to see the solution. A fresh perspective could help us identify the issue faster." Elon nodded. "I'll get the best software minds on it. Let's also make sure we're bringing in enough resources to tackle this from every angle, hardware, software, and the integration between them. This isn't just an energy problem, it's an engineering one." The team sprang into action. They worked around the clock, pulling in experts from various departments and even consulting with external engineers who had previously worked on grid technology. The pressure was on, and the stakes were high. But as always, Elon was focused on the end goal, the greater vision, and nothing would deter him from pushing forward. Outside of the engineering rooms, the tension in the company culture was palpable as well. With the scope of the project expanding, so too did the number of stakeholders involved. Investors were eager for results, and the media was already speculating on the success or failure of the collaboration. The pressure to deliver was mounting. One afternoon, as Elon was leaving a meeting with a group of investors, he received a call from Gwyn. Her voice was urgent but calm. "Elon, we've got some pushback from regulators. They're concerned about the scale of the project. They see the potential benefits, but they're worried about monopolistic practices. They want assurances that this won't become an exclusive platform controlled by Tesla and Rivian. They're threatening to slow down our progress unless we address these concerns." Elon clenched his jaw. He had anticipated regulatory challenges, but the idea of slowing down their efforts was unacceptable. Tell them we're working on a solution that will keep the market open and competitive. This isn't about controlling the future, it's about enabling it. We'll work with other companies, allow for interconnectivity, and ensure that anyone can join the ecosystem. Gwyn sighed. I'll start drafting a response. But we're going to need to be transparent about the risks. If we're moving too fast, the regulators will start pushing back even harder. Elon thought for a moment. He had always prided himself on thinking beyond the limits, but he knew that if they were going to succeed on this scale, they couldn't afford to make enemies. The collaboration needed to be as inclusive as it was revolutionary. But that didn't mean he was ready to compromise on the larger vision. We'll figure it out, he said, his voice firm. Let's keep moving forward. At Rivian, Nathan was also facing challenges of his own. As the lead on the project, he found himself in the middle of balancing the company's existing goals with the new direction the collaboration was taking. Rivian's vision had always been to build rugged, off-road capable vehicles that could power adventure and exploration. But now, the company was being asked to expand its focus into smart technology, energy infrastructure, and sustainable urban planning. It was a big shift, and not all of Rivian's team members were on board. A few engineers had expressed concerns about whether the company's brand would be diluted by joining forces with Tesla and SpaceX. Rivian's reputation was built on its commitment to adventure, to rugged individualism. Was the new direction starting to feel too corporate? Too mainstream? Nathan understood the fears, but he knew that this wasn't just about vehicles or even the future of Rivian. This was about the future of the planet. Sitting in a conference room with his team, Nathan addressed their concerns. I get it. The idea of changing direction can be uncomfortable. But think about the bigger picture. We're not just building trucks anymore. We're building a world where these trucks, these vehicles, are a key part of the solution. We have a responsibility to help change the way people live, work, and move. Olivia, the chief engineer, nodded in agreement. We're not abandoning our roots. If anything, we're reinforcing them. These vehicles will still be rugged, still built for adventure. But they'll also serve a much greater purpose. They'll be the backbone of a new energy economy. The team fell silent for a moment, contemplating the magnitude of what they were embarking on. Slowly, the skepticism began to dissipate, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. Back in California, the first prototype of the mobile energy hub was ready for testing. Tesla and Rivian engineers had collaborated to create a rugged vehicle that could operate as both a high-performance truck and an energy storage and distribution system. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was a start. Elon, Nathan, and Gwyn gathered at the Tesla test track, watching as the prototype truck powered up and connected to the energy grid for the first time. The lights on the dashboard flickered as the vehicle began transferring power to the grid, sending energy back into the system in a smooth, continuous flow. Nathan's voice broke the silence. It's working. Elon smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. It's only the beginning. The vehicle had passed the first test. It was a tangible step toward realizing the vision they had all been working toward. And though the road ahead remained long and filled with challenges, they had already proven one thing: they could make the impossible possible. As the project moved forward, new challenges appeared almost daily. What had once felt like an unstoppable force of innovation now faced the harsh realities of global competition, regulatory constraints, and, perhaps most concerning, unforeseen technical limitations. Elon stood at the edge of a new prototype, examining its sleek design and powerful energy capabilities. Rivian and Tesla engineers had put together a vehicle that was more than just a car. It was an energy hub capable of charging homes, businesses, and even other vehicles. But as the real-world testing began, it quickly became clear that there were still significant kinks to work out. Inside the test facility, the truck sat idle, its dashboard lights flickering in uncertainty. Olivia approached Elon with a concerned look. "There's an issue with the energy transfer speed," Olivia said, her voice tight with frustration. We're losing a lot of efficiency when we try to charge homes. It's not enough to make it viable for large-scale use. The battery just isn't transferring energy quickly enough. Elon crossed his arms, staring at the vehicle as if he could will it into perfection. Is it the battery capacity, or is it the interface between the vehicle and the grid? He asked. We think it's a combination of both. The battery is powerful, but it's not designed for the kind of continuous discharge we're asking of it. The infrastructure on the grid is also struggling to handle the unpredictability of the energy flow. Elon thought for a moment, then looked over at Gwyn, who had joined them in the lab. She had been in and out of meetings with government regulators and global energy agencies, trying to navigate the red tape that came with such a large-scale transformation. We need to rethink the battery's discharge rate, Elon said. We're going to need a breakthrough. We can't allow this to hold up the entire project. Gwyn's face was pinched in concern. Elon, we also have a problem with the regulators. The project has garnered a lot of attention, positive and negative, and it's putting pressure on us to move faster. But some governments are concerned about this level of integration between private companies. They want us to open up the energy sharing platform to more players. That's going to slow down our timelines if we can't address those concerns. Elon exhaled sharply. I get it. But we can't sacrifice the integrity of the project just to keep them happy. If we're going to change the world, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. He turned back to Olivia. What about alternative materials for the battery? Can we look into something with faster discharge properties? Maybe graphene or some kind of solid-state technology? Olivia nodded slowly. We're already exploring graphene, but it's still in the prototype phase. Solid-state technology is promising, but it's not ready for mass production yet. But if we push the timeline, we might be able to integrate it within the next few years. Elon's mind raced. The timeline was critical, and every delay meant more challenges down the road. He was already facing public scrutiny, and the pressure was mounting to deliver on a promise that many people, investors, governments, and even the public, had yet to fully understand. Meanwhile, at Rivian's headquarters, Nathan and his team were grappling with their own set of issues. The integration of the vehicles into the larger energy ecosystem had brought up complexities that they hadn't anticipated. They were beginning to see that their vehicles would need to be far more intelligent than initially imagined. They were no longer just rugged off-road vehicles, they were moving power stations, with intricate software and hardware demands that were pushing their engineering team to the limits. Okay, so the trucks need to talk to the grid, the solar panels, and even each other, Nathan said, addressing a room full of engineers. But the real challenge is scalability. We need to ensure that this network can grow without breaking down. Imagine if we get millions of vehicles connected to the grid. The system has to handle that kind of pressure without fail. Olivia, who had joined Nathan for the meeting, was quick to respond. We're going to need advanced AI algorithms for that kind of scale. The system needs to make real-time decisions, learning from the network as it grows. The more vehicles and energy systems we add, the smarter the network has to become. If it's going to work, it needs to adapt and predict. Nathan nodded, understanding the weight of the responsibility. We're not just building a vehicle anymore. We're building the heart of an energy revolution. And that means we have to integrate everything, hardware, software, and data, into one seamless experience. As they worked through the challenges, Nathan began to see the bigger picture more clearly. It wasn't just about building great vehicles anymore. It was about creating a seamless experience, where energy flowed like a living organism between people, vehicles, homes, and even businesses. The technology needed to feel intuitive, simple, and user-friendly, while simultaneously being sophisticated enough to support a global shift in how energy was produced, consumed, and stored. Elon spent countless sleepless nights in the lab, pushing his teams harder and harder to find solutions. His mind never stopped racing, and the weight of the project was beginning to feel suffocating. He felt like he was walking a tightrope, balancing between pushing the limits of innovation and not rushing into decisions that could backfire. One evening, after a particularly grueling round of testing, Elon sat alone in his office, staring out of the large windows that overlooked the Tesla campus. The lights of the factory floor flickered below, a symbol of the tireless work that had gone into the project. But the sense of progress wasn't as satisfying as it should have been. He knew there was more to be done, too much more. As he sat there, lost in thought, Gwyn entered the room, her presence a welcome distraction. "Elon, I've been talking to some of the people at the regulatory agencies," she said, her tone soft but serious. "They're willing to give us more time, if we can show them that we're making progress. They want to see a working model that's capable of providing energy to a small community." Elon glanced at her. "That's what we're working on. But we need to move faster." Gwyn sighed. "I know. But we're also facing resistance from competitors. Some automakers and energy companies are already calling it a Tesla monopoly. They're spreading misinformation to slow us down. We have to be strategic, not just in engineering but in how we handle public relations." Elon rubbed his eyes, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. "I didn't get into this to play politics, Gwyn." "I know," she replied gently. "But the world is watching. If we want to make a real impact, we need more than just innovation. We need the world on our side." Elon nodded, his resolve hardening. "We'll make it work. We've always made it work." That night, as the team worked tirelessly to solve the latest round of technical challenges, the pressure felt almost unbearable. But amidst the stress and uncertainty, something else was growing. A new sense of unity. No one was backing down. Rivian, Tesla, and SpaceX were no longer just separate companies working on separate products, they were one team, facing the world's biggest problems together. Elon smiled to himself, knowing that while the road ahead was steep and filled with obstacles, they were walking it together. And that, in itself, was the greatest strength. As weeks turned into months, the collaboration between Tesla, Rivian, and SpaceX had entered a new phase, one where every success felt like a fleeting moment, and every failure carried with it the weight of the world. Elon's resolve had been tested more than ever, and now, as the team faced their biggest obstacle yet, the stakes had never been higher. The global media was starting to catch wind of the revolution they were attempting to orchestrate. The energy systems, the smart grid, the vehicles that were more than just cars, they were the new lifeblood of the planet's future. With every press release, the anticipation grew. But so did the criticism. "You know what's at stake, right?" Gwyn's voice echoed in Elon's mind as they sat across from each other in a quiet boardroom late one evening. "The world is watching. And they're not just waiting for results, they're waiting for perfection. Any misstep could derail everything." Elon, who had been staring out of the window at the sprawling factory complex below, turned his attention to her. The evening sun was setting, casting long shadows across the walls. "I didn't come this far to turn back now, Gwyn. We know the road is hard, and I'm prepared for the consequences. We've been challenging the status quo from day one." Gwyn nodded slowly, her eyes steady. "I know you are, Elon. But this is different. People are starting to question whether the whole thing will actually work, and now we're feeling the heat from both investors and the media. They want to see results now, not in 5 years. If we can't give them that." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Elon had been hearing the whispers, the murmurs of doubt that were slowly gaining volume. "I get it," Elon said, his voice hard with determination. "But that's why we can't afford to get comfortable. This project needs to move forward. And fast." It was in that moment that Elon knew, they were approaching a tipping point. The kind of inflection point where the smallest shift, one decision, one innovation, one breakthrough, could change everything. He had always been someone who pushed against the odds, but now, with so much on the line, he could feel the weight of the choices they had ahead. The technical issues that had been plaguing the energy network, energy transfer problems, battery discharge rate inefficiencies, grid instability, were now compounded by regulatory pressure and competition from major automakers and energy firms. Rivian and Tesla were both moving at breakneck speeds to develop the energy-sharing ecosystem, but Elon knew they were facing a race against time. Back at Rivian's headquarters, Nathan was feeling the pressure too. Though the team had made significant progress, they still had a lot of work to do before the vehicles would be ready for public use. As the trucks were undergoing more intensive tests, it became clear that they were not yet as reliable as they needed to be. A test vehicle that had been operating in a simulated community energy grid had failed to maintain a steady charge, leaving a number of homes without power for several hours. The media pounced on the failure, and the headlines screamed about a disastrous setback for the project. "We can't afford to fail like this," Nathan said to Olivia, pacing in the control room. "This is more than just a technical issue. This is a crisis of trust. We need to fix this now." Olivia, who had been analyzing the data from the test failure, stood up and approached him. "We know what went wrong. The battery discharge cycle is too erratic. We need a better understanding of how the vehicles interact with the grid in real time. We're not talking about a few homes here, Nathan, we're talking about entire neighborhoods. If we can't get it right, this will be more than just a minor setback. It could lead to a complete collapse of the whole system." Nathan nodded grimly. "It's a risk we can't take. But we're close, Olivia. I know we are. We've just got to figure out what went wrong." The two of them worked tirelessly, tweaking algorithms, redesigning parts of the battery management system, and fine-tuning the interface with the grid. The failure had shocked them both, but it also fueled their determination. They knew they had to move fast, because the world was watching, waiting for them to prove that their vision wasn't just a pipe dream. Meanwhile, back at Tesla's headquarters, Elon's team was working around the clock to resolve their own issues. The engineers were making breakthroughs in the development of a new battery material, solid-state technology, an innovation that could solve many of the power transfer problems they had been facing. It was still in the early stages, but it was a promising lead. "Solid state is the future," Elon said to his engineering team, as they gathered in one of the testing labs. "We need to accelerate this development. We can't let it drag on for too long." But it wasn't just the technical issues that weighed on Elon's mind. The project was now the subject of intense media scrutiny. Reports of failures, coupled with mounting pressure from competitors, had made headlines across the globe. "They're all looking for the cracks," Gwynn had warned him earlier. "Any little thing they can latch onto, and they'll tear us apart." It was a reality Elon had prepared for. He knew they couldn't stop now, and that success would require a relentless pursuit of excellence. But he also knew they had to tread carefully. People didn't just want to see a new product, they wanted to see the future. And that future had to be perfect. Elon stood in front of the large whiteboard that had become his canvas. Scribbled across it were equations, plans, and timelines. The future wasn't just an idea, it was a set of coordinates he was determined to reach, no matter the obstacles. "We will make it work," he muttered to himself. "We always do." The tipping point came sooner than anyone expected. One evening, as Tesla's engineers were testing a new prototype with the solid-state battery technology, the unthinkable happened. The system, which had been running smoothly for hours, suddenly began overheating. Sparks flew, and the entire unit shut down in a violent cascade of failures. The room fell into chaos as alarms blared and engineers scrambled to assess the damage. Elon arrived at the scene shortly after the incident. He walked into the lab, his expression stoic, but there was a fire in his eyes. "What happened?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "It's the new battery," one of the engineers replied, his voice shaking. "We tried pushing it too hard. The heat is too much for it to handle. We're going to need a complete redesign." Elon's heart sank. They had come so far, and now, this. He took a deep breath, looking at the wreckage of the prototype. But then something shifted. A surge of adrenaline coursed through him. This is the moment, Elon said, almost to himself. The moment we make the impossible possible. We don't back down. We don't stop here. He turned to the team, his face resolute. We've been through worse. We'll fix this. We always do. It was in that moment that the team realized Elon was right. It wasn't about the setbacks. It was about the breakthrough on the other side. And they were closer than ever. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The following days were a blur of sleepless nights, endless calculations, and frustrated attempts to fix what seemed broken beyond repair. Elon knew that the solid-state battery was the key to the future of energy and transportation, but now, after the catastrophic failure, the team's morale had hit an all-time low. The risk of failure had never been clearer, and the weight of that realization bore down on Elon and his team. Despite the setbacks, Elon found himself pacing the lab late one night, staring at the flickering prototype that had once seemed like their greatest breakthrough. The project was hanging by a thread, and in his gut, he knew that if they didn't get it right soon, the consequences could be disastrous, not just for Tesla, but for Rivian, SpaceX, and the entire revolution they had worked so tirelessly to create. I don't know how much more of this we can take, Gwyn said, her voice tight as she approached him. The board is breathing down our necks. Investors are starting to lose confidence. If we don't show them results soon, they'll start pulling out. Elon looked up at her, the flickering lights in the lab casting shadows on his face. I know, he said quietly. But we're not giving up yet. I'm not walking away from this. I don't care how hard it gets. Gwyn hesitated for a moment, before placing a hand on his shoulder. I know you're not. But this is different. People are watching us now. The entire world is waiting to see if we can pull this off. And every failure, every delay, only gives the media and our competitors more ammunition to tear us down. Elon exhaled sharply, his mind racing. We need a breakthrough. Something big. Something that shifts the momentum back in our favor. The thought of a breakthrough kept him up at night, as did the thought of what might happen if they couldn't deliver. Elon was no stranger to challenges. He had defied the odds before with SpaceX and Tesla, but this was different. The weight of the world felt heavier than ever, and he could feel the pressure from all sides, from the investors, the regulators, the media, and even the public. Meanwhile, Nathan at Rivian was also feeling the pressure. After Tesla's latest failure with the solid-state battery, Rivian's energy-sharing technology seemed to be falling behind. They had been working on integrating their vehicles into the grid, but the system had been too unstable, and the truck's power-sharing capabilities were far from perfect. The public's patience was wearing thin, and the media was quick to capitalize on any failure. Sitting in the conference room with his team, Nathan tried to mask his frustration, but it was impossible to hide the worry in his eyes. We need to get this right, he said, his voice gruff. The last test was a disaster. The trucks lost power halfway through the grid integration. People are going to start losing faith if we can't fix this soon. Olivia, who had been quiet for most of the meeting, spoke up. I know, Nathan. We're working on it. The battery systems need better regulation, especially during high-demand periods. But the trucks are still working fine in isolated areas. It's just when we connect them to the larger grid that things fall apart. Nathan ran his fingers through his hair, his mind racing. We need to go back to the drawing board and redesign the whole system. I'm not just talking about the trucks. I mean the entire grid integration. If we don't have a robust, scalable solution in place, this whole thing will collapse. Olivia nodded, her face filled with determination. We'll fix it, Nathan. We just need more time. We have the tech, we have the vision. We just need to refine it. But Nathan wasn't sure they had enough time. With each passing day, the media was gaining more and more traction with stories of their failures. He couldn't shake the thought that if they didn't solve this soon, they could lose everything they'd worked for. Back at Tesla, the team was putting everything they had into solving the battery issue. Engineers were working around the clock, exploring new materials, redesigning the architecture, and testing alternative solutions. But nothing seemed to work. Elon's resolve was unwavering, but even he could feel the strain of it all. One evening, after another failed round of testing, he sat alone in his office, staring at the blackboard filled with scribbled equations. His thoughts wandered. Could they really pull this off? Or had they simply bitten off more than they could chew? His phone buzzed, interrupting his reverie. It was a message from Gwyn, "We need to talk. Urgent." Minutes later, Elon was standing outside her office, his heart beating faster than usual. The sense of urgency in her message had him on edge. When he stepped inside, Gwyn looked up from her desk, her expression serious. "We have a problem," she said, her voice low. "What is it?" Elon asked, his mind already racing with potential scenarios. "Regulatory agencies are starting to question the viability of our project. They're demanding more transparency in how we're handling data and testing the energy sharing systems. They want to see that we're not just building a vehicle, we're building a fully functioning, sustainable energy system. And they want it now." Elon's jaw clenched. "We don't have time to show them now. We're trying to build the future, and it's not going to happen on their timeline." "I know, Elon," Gwyn said, her voice filled with empathy. "But we're running out of options. If we can't meet these demands, we risk losing our permits, our funding. The whole project could be halted before we ever get the chance to finish it." Elon closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his thoughts. The pressure was mounting, but he knew one thing for sure, he wasn't going to let this die. Not after everything they had accomplished. "We're going to do whatever it takes to make this work," Elon said, his voice steely. "I don't care how many regulations we have to navigate, how many failures we have to endure. We're going to prove them wrong. We're going to show them that we can change the world." Gwyn nodded, but there was a look in her eyes that he knew all too well. It was a look of doubt, just a flicker, but enough to make him pause. The next few days were a blur of meetings, tests, and last-ditch efforts to solve the overwhelming technical challenges. The team was exhausted, but they pushed through, determined to find a way. It felt like they were teetering on the edge of something great, or something that could come crashing down at any moment. Late one evening, after yet another round of unsuccessful tests, Elon gathered the entire team in the lab. His face was tired, but his eyes burned with resolve. "This is it. We're at the breaking point," he said, his voice cutting through the exhaustion in the room. "But we've come this far, and we're not stopping now. We're going to find a way to make this work. We're going to solve these problems. We will not fail." The room fell silent as every person in the room looked at Elon, feeling his conviction. They all knew that their future, and the future of the entire energy revolution, was on the line. For the first time in days, hope began to flicker again. The next few days were some of the most difficult Elon had ever faced. Tensions were high at both Tesla and Rivian, and the weight of the failure weighed heavily on everyone's shoulders. Yet, amid all the pressure and frustration, a flicker of hope appeared in the most unexpected place. It started with a phone call at around midnight. Elon was alone in his office at Tesla headquarters, staring at a screen filled with endless test results that seemed to offer no answers. He was about to call it a night when his phone buzzed. It was an unfamiliar number. "Hello." Elon answered, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. "Elon, it's Nathan." "From Rivian," the voice on the other end said. Elon sat up straight, instantly awake. "Nathan? It's late. What's going on?" "I know, but we need to talk," Nathan replied, his voice tense but determined. I've been going over some of the recent data, and I think I may have figured out something that could help both of us. Elon raised an eyebrow. Help both of us? How? Look, I know you're under a lot of pressure. So are we. But I think there's something in the energy grid technology that we've been overlooking. Something that could solve your battery issue and fix some of the integration problems we've been having at Rivian. I believe our systems could work together, Elon. We have the pieces of the puzzle, but we need to combine our efforts. Elon was silent for a moment, processing what Nathan was saying. After months of competition and pressure, the idea of collaborating with Rivian seemed both strange and, oddly, like a lifeline. You're suggesting a joint venture? Elon asked, a skeptical note in his voice. I wouldn't put it that way exactly, Nathan replied, but yes. I think the solutions to your battery challenges are already in play over here at Rivian, and maybe vice versa. If we share the knowledge, the breakthroughs, we can overcome the hurdles that have been stopping both of us. But we need to be strategic about it. Elon leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. The thought of working with Rivian, his biggest competitor, was not one he had entertained until now, but Nathan was right. The current situation was dire. Tesla needed every possible edge it could get. And Rivian was in the same boat. All right, Elon said slowly, his voice calculating. What exactly are you suggesting? Nathan took a deep breath, then launched into a detailed explanation of the data Rivian had gathered regarding energy grid integration, battery management, and real-time energy transfer. As he spoke, Elon's mind raced. Nathan was right, the breakthroughs they had made at Rivian could be exactly what Tesla needed to solve its current issues. And vice versa, Tesla's innovations could help Rivian fix its vehicle and grid reliability problems. We've been working on an advanced algorithm that could optimize the way energy flows through the grid when combined with our trucks. It's not perfect, but I think it's the missing link you need for the battery systems. If we tweak it, your batteries could integrate more smoothly with the grid. Elon sat silently, considering the idea. The risks were enormous. Partnering with a competitor in such a high-stakes project could either make or break everything. But in the midst of the technical challenges and mounting pressure, the opportunity to push the future of energy and transportation forward was too significant to ignore. All right, Nathan, Elon said, his voice steady with resolve. Let's meet tomorrow. Let's figure out how we can make this work. But I'm not making any promises. Nathan's voice sounded relieved. Understood. But I think this is the way forward, Elon. We've got something big here. The next day, Tesla and Rivian engineers sat side by side in a conference room, discussing the most promising technologies and ideas they had. The mood was different from the usual rivalry, there was a sense of urgency and collaboration that was rare in an industry defined by fierce competition. Elon and Nathan stood at the front of the room, explaining their respective breakthroughs to the engineers, who then began working together to identify ways they could combine Tesla's solid-state battery research with Rivian's grid integration technology. It's about more than just vehicles, Nathan said, addressing the engineers. It's about creating an entire ecosystem. We need to think beyond just putting cars on the road. This is about creating a sustainable future, one where energy isn't just produced by massive power plants, but shared by everyone, all the time. As the day wore on, the team worked tirelessly, brainstorming solutions, running tests, and collaborating in ways they never had before. Elon, who had initially been skeptical about Rivian's involvement, now saw the potential of this partnership. The breakthroughs from both sides were incredible, and there was a spark of something truly revolutionary in the air. By the end of the day, they had a working prototype. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was a step in the right direction. The Tesla vehicles, integrated with Rivian's grid technology, had begun operating as intended, not just as cars, but as parts of a living, breathing ecosystem that could help power homes and businesses. All right, we're not done yet, Elon said as he stood at the front of the room, looking at the team. But this is what the future looks like. This is the first step toward making clean, sustainable energy not just a dream, but a reality. There was a sense of excitement in the air, a feeling of possibility that hadn't been present in weeks. The long nights of frustration and setbacks had given way to a glimmer of hope, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the team felt like they were truly on the verge of something world-changing. That night, Elon sat alone in his office, looking out over the city. The weight of the past months was still there, but now it felt lighter somehow. The breakthrough with Rivian was a start, but it wasn't the end. There was still so much work to do. But for the first time in a long time, he felt confident that they could make it. As the lights of the city flickered below, he allowed himself a rare moment of hope. Maybe this was the moment when everything began to change. Maybe, just maybe, they had finally reached the tipping point. The weeks following the breakthrough were filled with optimism and an unprecedented level of collaboration between Tesla and Rivian. The combined energy systems were showing promising results, with engineers from both sides working seamlessly to address the challenges ahead. But while the technical progress was moving forward, something else, something less tangible, was beginning to stir in the background. Elon had learned over the years that every success came with its own set of consequences, often unforeseen. As the partnership between Tesla and Rivian continued to develop, the ripple effects began to spread, touching not just the two companies, but the entire automotive and energy industries. One afternoon, as Elon sat in his office reviewing data from the latest round of tests, he received a call from Gwyn. She was sounding more concerned than usual. "Elon," she said, her tone serious. "We need to talk. The investors are getting nervous. They're asking tough questions. They want to know why we've partnered with Rivian. They think this whole thing is a distraction, a sign that we've lost focus. You need to come to the next meeting." Elon felt the familiar weight of pressure bearing down on him again. After everything they had achieved, after all the technical breakthroughs, he hadn't anticipated that the public perception of the collaboration would be so negative. Many of Tesla's investors, who had long seen Rivian as a rival, were struggling to understand why Elon would enter into a partnership with the competition, especially after Tesla had spent years building its own energy system infrastructure. "I'll be there," Elon said, rubbing his eyes. "Let me finish this up and I'll head over." The meeting with investors was tense. As soon as Elon walked into the room, the questions began, sharp and pointed. "Why are we working with Rivian?" one of the investors asked. "This partnership looks like we've lost our edge, Elon. Are we not capable of solving our own problems anymore?" Another voice chimed in, "We've always believed in Tesla's ability to innovate on its own. Why involve Rivian now? Are we admitting we can't handle the competition?" Elon took a deep breath. He knew this moment was coming, but it still stung. It was hard for people to understand the bigger picture, especially when their stakes were so high and their vision so limited. "Listen," Elon began, his voice calm but firm. "I understand your concerns. But this isn't about weakness or admitting defeat. This is about opportunity. Rivian and Tesla have both been working on the future of sustainable energy, but we've been working in parallel. For years, we've tried to solve similar problems separately. But the fact is, our breakthroughs complement each other. If we join forces, we'll be able to push the boundaries of what's possible, faster, better, and more efficiently than we ever could on our own. This isn't just about cars or trucks. It's about building the infrastructure that the world needs to move forward." There was a long pause in the room, as the investors absorbed his words. He could see them wrestling with the idea, unsure whether to embrace it or reject it outright. "I'm telling you, this is the future," Elon continued. "We've taken a risk, but it's a calculated risk. We're not losing our edge, we're expanding it." The room fell into silence as the investors exchanged glances. Finally, one of them spoke. "I'll give you this, Elon. You've always been the guy to take risks. But don't make the mistake of relying too heavily on Rivian. They're still a competitor." Elon nodded. I know. But sometimes, the greatest breakthroughs come when we put aside our egos and work together. Think about it. The future we're building isn't just Tesla's or Rivian's, it's everyone's. The room remained quiet for a moment, but then a slow murmur of agreement began to spread. They didn't all agree, but many of them began to see the logic in what Elon was saying. The discussion shifted to the specifics of the partnership, and for the first time in what felt like weeks, Elon felt a small sense of relief. He had managed to hold on to his vision, despite the doubts of those around him. Outside the meeting, however, the tension was far from over. The media had caught wind of the partnership, and the coverage was polarized. Some hailed the collaboration as the dawn of a new era of innovation, while others saw it as a sign of weakness. Headlines ranged from "Tesla and Rivian join forces to revolutionize the future" to "Tesla admits defeat, partners with rival amid failures." The media frenzy was relentless. The negative attention was mounting, and both Tesla and Rivian were under a microscope like never before. Elon couldn't escape the feeling that the public's perception was being shaped more by sensationalism than by the actual progress they were making. That afternoon, as Elon walked through Tesla's headquarters, he passed a group of engineers in the hallway, discussing the latest prototype. He overheard one of them muttering, "I can't believe we're working with Rivian." Elon stopped in his tracks. He looked at the engineer, a younger guy who had been with Tesla for a few years. "Is there a problem?" Elon asked. The engineer hesitated, but then spoke. "It's just weird, you know. We've been fighting against them for years, and now we're working with them. I get that you're trying to push the limits, but I don't know. It feels like we're losing our identity." Elon studied the engineer for a moment, trying to gauge his thoughts. He understood the sentiment. For years, Tesla had been an underdog, fighting against bigger companies and rivals like Rivian. But now, the company was growing, changing. The competition wasn't just about who could build the best car anymore. It was about who could transform the entire energy landscape. "You're right," Elon said after a pause. "It's not easy. But sometimes the future doesn't fit into the molds we've created. This is about something bigger than any one company. It's about changing the world. And to do that, we need to think beyond our egos." The engineer nodded, still uncertain, but Elon could see a flicker of understanding in his eyes. This was going to be a hard journey, but it was one they would have to take together. As the days turned into weeks, the media frenzy began to die down, and the initial resistance to the partnership softened. Tesla's investors began to see the early successes of the joint venture, and the pressure started to ease. Slowly but surely, the team at Tesla and Rivian began to realize that, despite the skepticism, they were indeed creating something monumental. But just as the dust began to settle, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenges were only just beginning. The future, as always, was full of promise, but also full of unknowns. The collaboration between Tesla and Rivian continued to push forward with groundbreaking results, but the future was anything but certain. As Elon sat in his office late one night, overlooking the bustling city below, he couldn't help but wonder, were they truly on the right path? Or were they headed into uncharted waters that could bring everything crashing down? He had always been a visionary, thinking years, even decades, ahead of most people. But now, with Rivian and Tesla working together, he had to confront a question that, until now, had never seemed this urgent. What if this whole project, the future they were building, was too big for even them? Elon's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Gwyn. "You look deep in thought," she remarked, stepping into the room. "What's on your mind?" Elon gave a tired smile. "Just thinking about how far we've come, and how far we still have to go. We've got a lot riding on this partnership. But the world doesn't always play nice with new ideas." Gwyn nodded. "That's the reality. But you know as well as I do that we've built Tesla by taking risks and challenging conventional wisdom. What we're doing with Rivian isn't any different. Elon sat back, his eyes focused on the glowing screen in front of him. I know, but the stakes feel different now. We're not just pushing the limits of electric vehicles anymore. We're rethinking energy itself, how it's stored, transferred, and used on a global scale. Gwyn paused for a moment, then sat across from him. You've always been a step ahead of everyone else. People are just starting to catch up to the possibilities. And if anyone can pull this off, it's you. Elon appreciated her confidence, but the weight of what they were trying to achieve felt heavier than ever. The combination of Tesla's cutting-edge battery technology with Rivian's power grid innovations was yielding unprecedented results, but those results had also drawn the attention of the world's largest and most powerful players, corporations, governments, and rivals. Everyone wanted a piece of what Tesla and Rivian were creating, but not all of them were motivated by the same ideals. The following week, Elon met with Nathan from Rivian to discuss the next phase of their collaboration. They had made significant progress in integrating the Tesla energy systems with Rivian's vehicles, but there were still critical hurdles to overcome. Together, they were on the verge of launching a fleet of electric trucks capable of revolutionizing transportation, but they needed to refine the details and secure the right partnerships. As they sat down at the conference table, Nathan looked at Elon with a mixture of excitement and concern. Elon, I think we're about to hit the tipping point, Nathan said, his voice serious. We're getting close to having the system ready to go, but we need more than just technical expertise. We need the right partners to help us scale this to the global level. Elon nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. You're right. This isn't just about making electric trucks work. It's about building a new energy ecosystem. We need partners who understand the broader implications of what we're doing. I'm worried, though, Nathan continued. I've been hearing rumors from some of our major backers. They're getting cold feet. Some are starting to question the whole partnership with Tesla. There's a lot of skepticism out there. Elon's brow furrowed. He had known that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he hadn't expected internal pushback so soon. What are they worried about? It's the risk. It's too big. Too fast. They want guarantees, Elon. They want us to prove that this is more than just a pipe dream. Elon leaned forward. We'll prove it to them. We're building the future, Nathan. We've always known it wouldn't be easy. But we can't turn back now. Later that week, Elon was invited to speak at an energy conference in California, where the world's most influential leaders in clean energy and technology would gather. The opportunity was significant, but it was also a chance to address some of the growing concerns about Tesla and Rivian's partnership. As he stood on stage, looking out at the audience of industry leaders, CEOs, and government officials, Elon couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a speech, it was a declaration. The future of energy and transportation was in their hands, and now was the time to make it clear what they were all about. He began with the story of Tesla's early days, how the company had been founded on the idea that sustainable energy was not just a possibility but a necessity. He spoke of the challenges they had faced, the naysayers who had doubted them, and the hurdles that had seemed insurmountable. But through it all, they had pushed forward. Now, with Rivian at their side, they were entering a new era. One where the electric vehicles of the future were not just cars, but part of a larger, interconnected grid. An ecosystem where vehicles could not only drive on clean energy but help power homes, businesses, and entire cities. We're on the cusp of something truly extraordinary, Elon said, his voice carrying with conviction. Together, Tesla and Rivian are working to create a new world, one where energy is not just consumed, but shared. A world where sustainable power is accessible to everyone, everywhere. He paused for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. But to get there, he continued, we can't be afraid to take risks. We can't let fear of failure stop us from building the future. We have to push forward, together. The room was silent as Elon finished speaking. There was a palpable sense of anticipation in the air, as if the entire audience was waiting for something more. And then, the applause came. It was slow at first, uncertain, but gradually building until the entire room erupted in support. Elon's words had struck a chord with the crowd, and for a moment, he felt the weight of the world lift. But the applause was short-lived. As he walked off the stage, he received a text from Gwyn. It was a message he wasn't expecting. "Elon, we need to talk. It's about the partnership. The board's getting restless. They want to see more than just promises. We're at a critical juncture." Elon's heart sank. The tipping point had arrived. The pressure was mounting, and the next few decisions would define not just the future of Tesla, but of the entire clean energy revolution. Back in the boardroom, Elon could feel the intensity in the air. The investors, once hesitant but now hopeful, were starting to show cracks in their optimism. "Elon, the promise is there," one investor said, "but we need to see more than just ideas. We need to see results. How are we going to make this work on a global scale?" Elon took a deep breath. It was time to show them that they weren't just building an electric car company, they were building the future. "We're not just building cars or trucks," Elon said, his voice steady. "We're building an energy revolution. This is the moment when we can redefine the world's infrastructure, when we can change the way energy flows and is used. But to do that, we have to take risks. We have to commit to this vision, fully." The room fell silent once more. Elon knew this was the moment that could either solidify their success or make them falter. "I'm ready to take that leap," he said. "Are you?" The days that followed Elon's impassioned speech at the energy conference were tense. The doubts that had plagued the investors seemed to grow louder, and despite his confidence, Elon could feel the strain weighing on him more than ever. The partnership between Tesla and Rivian, though filled with potential, was facing increasing opposition not just from outside forces, but from within the ranks of both companies. The boardroom was tense as Elon sat across from Gwyn, Nathan, and the other key figures from both Tesla and Rivian. The goal was clear: find a way to prove the viability of their collaboration and secure the funding they needed to take it to the next level. Gwyn spoke first. "Elon, we need to talk numbers. The investors are demanding that we show more than just the grand vision. They want results, tangible milestones." Elon sat back in his chair, thinking. It wasn't that he didn't understand the importance of numbers, it was just that sometimes, the most meaningful progress couldn't be measured in spreadsheets or graphs. But in this moment, that was exactly what the world needed. "I agree," Elon said, finally. "We need to show them that the tech is scalable, that it can be rolled out on a massive scale, and that we're not just aiming for incremental change, but a radical transformation of the global infrastructure." Nathan nodded, adding, "We've got data on the prototypes. We've seen the potential. The integration of Tesla's energy systems with Rivian's trucks is performing better than expected. But we need to push it into real-world applications. We need to go beyond the tests and into full production." A sense of urgency filled the room. Despite all the early successes, the world had yet to see the true power of what they were building. They needed to convince everyone, from investors to consumers, that this was more than just a partnership, but a new era of energy in transportation. Back in the Tesla lab, engineers and designers worked around the clock, refining the systems that would power the next generation of electric vehicles. Elon watched as the team tested the newest iteration of the trucks, each equipped with a more efficient energy storage and distribution system. The tests were promising, but there was still so much to do. The world wasn't going to wait for them to perfect every detail. If they were going to succeed, they had to move quickly. But it wasn't just the technical challenges that weighed on Elon's mind. The pressures from Rivian's board were becoming more pronounced. Rivian's investors had started to question Tesla's intentions, wondering whether they were using their smaller partner as a stepping stone to advance their own agenda. These fears were magnified by the growing media scrutiny that painted the partnership as a calculated move to stifle competition. Despite the growing tensions, Elon remained focused on what mattered most. He knew that the only way forward was through innovation. But it was clear that Rivian's team needed more than just a shared vision, they needed reassurance that they wouldn't be left in Tesla's shadow. One afternoon, as Elon sat in the Tesla headquarters reviewing new designs, he received an unexpected call from R.J. Scaringe, Rivian CEO. Elon had met R.J. several times and respected him deeply for his passion and his vision for a more sustainable future. But now, R.J.'s voice was different, uneasy, strained. "Elon," R.J. began, "I think we need to have a real conversation. Things are getting tense on our end. The investors are pushing for more control. They want a bigger piece of the pie, and they're starting to worry that we're being overshadowed by Tesla. They're questioning whether this is a partnership or a takeover." Elon paused, letting the words sink in. This wasn't the first time he had heard concerns like this, but hearing it from R.J. himself made it feel more real, more urgent. "I get it," Elon said, his voice calm but firm. "But I'm not here to take over, R.J. I've always said this is a partnership, and I mean it. If we're going to change the world, we need to do it together. Tesla can't do this alone, and neither can Rivian." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before R.J. spoke again. "I believe that, Elon. I really do. But our investors aren't seeing it that way. We've got to find a way to prove that we're equals in this, otherwise, this partnership could crumble under the pressure." Elon took a deep breath, knowing that this was a critical moment in their relationship, not just with Rivian, but with the world. "Let's focus on what we're building, not who owns what. We can't let outside noise tear us apart. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that Rivian gets the recognition it deserves. We're in this for the long haul, and we're going to need each other every step of the way." R.J. hesitated for a moment, then said, "All right, Elon. I trust you. Let's make it happen." The call ended, and for a moment, Elon just sat there, his mind racing. He had been prepared for challenges, but the stakes were now higher than ever. If they didn't find a way to navigate the growing tensions between the two companies, and between their investors, their entire vision for the future could unravel. The following week, Elon and R.J. met in person at Rivian's headquarters. It was an important moment for both of them, and they knew it. Their teams had worked together long enough to create a promising synergy, but the growing pressure from investors was threatening to undo everything. As they sat in the Rivian conference room, Elon spoke up first. "We need to show everyone that this partnership isn't about taking over, it's about building something bigger than both of us. We're not just creating better vehicles, we're creating an entirely new way of thinking about energy, transportation, and the future." R.J. nodded. "I agree. And we need to be more vocal about that. Rivian and Tesla have different strengths, but together, we can accomplish things that neither of us could do alone. I think it's time we make that clear to our investors. The world needs to see that we're equals in this, not competitors." Elon smiled, feeling a sense of relief. This was the kind of conversation they needed to have. A conversation about collaboration, not competition. They were on the same team. "We'll do it together," Elon said. "We'll make sure everyone understands that this is about more than just two companies, this is about changing the course of history." With that, the two men shook hands, knowing that the future was still uncertain but that their commitment to each other, and to their shared vision, was the key to making the impossible possible. Later that evening, as Elon walked through the Tesla campus, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The storm wasn't over yet, but perhaps, just perhaps, they were beginning to find the calm within it. Together, Tesla and Rivian could overcome the growing tensions and prove that the future of sustainable energy wasn't just a dream, it was a reality in the making. But Elon knew that the real work was just beginning. Despite the promise of unity and shared vision between Tesla and Rivian, the path ahead wasn't as clear as Elon had hoped. Though the partnership between the two companies had started with great momentum, external forces were starting to take their toll. As Rivian's investors started to show signs of discontent, Tesla's board, too, was growing increasingly restless, questioning their long-term commitment to the project. One evening, Elon found himself pacing in his office, staring out at the city lights below. He had spent so much of his life trying to change the world, and yet, here he was, caught in the middle of a battle he hadn't fully anticipated: corporate politics. It was never supposed to be about money, it had always been about the bigger picture. But the reality of running two massive companies was forcing him to make decisions that were less about idealism and more about survival. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Gwyn. "We need to talk. Urgent." Elon's stomach dropped. He immediately picked up the phone and dialed her number. "Gwyn, what's going on?" he asked, his voice tense. "Elon," she said slowly, her voice unusually somber. "It's Nathan. He's in trouble." Elon's heart skipped a beat. Nathan, his closest ally at Rivian, was someone he trusted deeply. What could have happened? "What do you mean, in trouble? What's going on?" "I'm not sure yet, but I've just received word that Nathan is meeting with someone from one of our competitors, someone from the automotive industry. I can't confirm yet, but it looks like he's been having private meetings behind your back. It doesn't look good." A chill ran down Elon's spine. Betrayal was a word he rarely used, but it was one that now lingered in the back of his mind. Nathan had been one of the driving forces behind the Tesla-Rivian collaboration. If this was true, it was more than just a bad business decision, it was personal. "I need to know more," Elon said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Get to the bottom of this, and keep me updated." Elon didn't sleep that night. His mind raced with the implications of what he'd just learned. Could Nathan, the man he had worked so closely with, be undermining him? Was this the beginning of the end for the partnership with Rivian? And if Nathan had truly been plotting against Tesla, what did that mean for the future of their joint venture? As the hours ticked by, Elon found himself caught between two worlds: his devotion to the mission and the ever-present, creeping reality of corporate warfare. The next morning, he met with Gwyn in person to discuss the situation further. She had gathered more details, but the picture was still unclear. "Nathan's meetings are harder to trace than we thought," Gwyn said, her voice tight. "But the word on the street is that he's been talking to people from both Ford and General Motors. It looks like he might be negotiating a deal with them." Elon's face darkened. Ford and GM had been Tesla's competitors for years, but if they were now courting Rivian's leadership, it meant that something much larger was in play. "I need to confront him," Elon said. "If Nathan is making these moves behind our backs, we need to cut it off before it gets worse." But Gwyn raised a hand. "We don't know the full story yet. Before you do anything, let's gather more evidence. We can't afford to make assumptions. Let's be strategic." Elon nodded, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "You're right. We need to be careful. But if Nathan's playing us, there's no way I can let this go." Hours later, Elon arranged a private meeting with Nathan. They met at a quiet cafe outside the Tesla campus, far from prying eyes. Elon tried to read Nathan's body language as he sat down across from him, but Nathan appeared unusually calm, almost too calm. "I'm hearing things, Nathan," Elon began, his voice sharp. "Rumors about meetings with competitors. Ford. GM. What's going on?" Nathan didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and sighed, as if he had been expecting this conversation. "Elon, you've built something incredible, but the truth is, the world's changing fast. Rivian's future isn't just about Tesla. It's about survival. You've been pushing for a larger stake, and frankly, some of the Rivian investors are starting to question the long-term viability of this partnership. They want to know that we're making the right choices." Elon's jaw tightened. "So you think meeting with Ford and GM is the solution? Betraying everything we've built together?" Nathan's expression softened, though his words were no less firm. It's not about betrayal, Elon. It's about ensuring Rivian's future. We're not going to let ourselves be swallowed up. We've built something powerful, but we need more than just promises. We need real leverage. The world doesn't stop turning just because Tesla thinks it can change everything. We need to explore every avenue, and if that means talking to the big guys, then that's what we're going to do. Elon's heart pounded in his chest. He felt the ground beneath him shift. This isn't about survival, Nathan. This is about greed and ego. You've just sealed Rivian's fate by going down this road. Nathan's gaze hardened. Don't fool yourself, Elon. You've been running the show for too long. Maybe it's time you let others have a seat at the table. With those words, the walls came crashing down. Elon stood abruptly, his anger boiling over. You're making a huge mistake, Nathan. You've forgotten what this was all about. And if you're going to choose your own path, then so be it. But don't expect Tesla to sit idly by while you betray everything we've worked for. Nathan didn't rise. Instead, he gave Elon a look of resignation. I'm sorry, Elon. But this is bigger than you, bigger than me. It's about securing Rivian's place in the future. I can't do that by putting all my trust in one company. Elon turned and walked away, a deep sense of betrayal settling in his chest. The road ahead had just become far more treacherous, and with it, a realization gnawed at him. The fight for the future of sustainable energy wasn't just against the world, it was against the very people he had trusted most. Later that day, Elon called an emergency board meeting at Tesla. He couldn't afford to let this slip through the cracks. The future of the partnership with Rivian, and perhaps the future of Tesla itself, hung in the balance. As the board gathered, Elon addressed them with a steely determination in his voice. We're at a crossroads. The partnership with Rivian was built on trust, but that trust has been shattered. Nathan, the person we thought we could count on, has made moves that undermine everything we stand for. This partnership is on the verge of falling apart, but we can't allow that to happen. We have to act now. The board sat in stunned silence as Elon spoke. They knew what was at stake. The world was watching, and they couldn't afford to lose this fight. It's time we make our own path forward, Elon concluded. Tesla is not just a car company. We are the future of energy, and we can't afford to let anyone, even someone we trusted, stop us from building that future. The storm had arrived. The question now was, could Tesla weather it? The boardroom at Tesla was silent as Elon's words echoed through the air. The weight of what had just happened, the betrayal from Nathan, the potential fracture of the partnership with Rivian, hung over everyone in the room like a storm cloud. But Elon knew one thing for sure, he wasn't going to let this setback destroy what they had started. He had always believed that setbacks were just opportunities in disguise, and this time, it was no different. The challenge ahead was clear. Tesla needed to find a way to move forward, even if it meant rebuilding trust not only with Rivian but with the world. Elon took a deep breath before continuing. We've been through hard times before. We've faced the odds and come out stronger. This is no different. But we can't afford to be complacent or make reactive decisions. We need to think long-term, not just about the company's survival, but about how we're going to reshape the future. Gwyn, who had remained quiet up until now, spoke first. Elon, we can't let this divide us. If Nathan truly is working with our competitors, we need to neutralize the threat without losing sight of our goals. We can't afford to go into panic mode. Elon nodded slowly. I agree. We need to get ahead of this, and the first thing we need to do is address the investors. If we show them that we're still focused on the mission, they'll rally behind us. Gwyn's eyes flickered to the others in the room, the board members who had been quietly listening. What's the plan? She asked, her voice calm but firm. We need to make a statement, Elon replied. We have to be transparent. We can't let rumors and lies fester. We need to show Rivian, and everyone else, that Tesla is not just a company, it's a movement. We'll go public with a plan to move forward, but we'll do it in a way that reassures people that the betrayal doesn't change our long-term goals. Elon turned to the rest of the board. We're going to increase our efforts on sustainability and ramp up the production of our energy systems. We'll introduce new partnerships, new technologies. And we'll demonstrate that Tesla isn't just about cars, it's about changing the entire global infrastructure. One of the board members, a longtime ally, spoke up. And Rivian? Elon's face hardened. Rivian is a part of our future. I won't let a few bad decisions from their side derail everything we've built. But from here on out, we move forward on our terms. The meeting ended with a sense of determination. It was time to focus. Tesla had a vision that couldn't be shaken by one betrayal. The storm might have been brewing, but they had the strength to weather it. Back at Tesla's headquarters, Elon sat in his office, staring at the latest data on the company's energy systems. It had been a long day, but there was no time to rest. He was already thinking about the next steps. The future of Tesla, and the partnership with Rivian, depended on how they played their next hand. But in the back of his mind, one thought kept circling: how had Nathan ended up in this position? He had been a key part of the Rivian team, someone who believed in the mission. Had he been pushed into a corner by Rivian's investors? Or was there something else at play? Elon shook his head. Now wasn't the time to get distracted by what could have been. The clock was ticking, and there was too much at stake. 2 days later, Elon held a press conference. It was time to set the record straight. He walked into the room, flanked by Gwynn and several other key Tesla executives. The room was filled with reporters, cameras flashing as they waited for the CEO to address the growing tensions between Tesla and Rivian. Elon stepped up to the podium, his gaze steady. "Good morning, everyone. I know there's been a lot of speculation about the future of Tesla and our relationship with Rivian. I want to be clear, Tesla is not defined by any single partnership. We are here to change the world, and we're doing that every single day." A hush fell over the room as Elon continued. "Over the past few months, we've faced challenges. But these challenges have only made us stronger. Tesla is not just about cars, it's about the future of energy. We're expanding our efforts in renewable energy, we're increasing production on all fronts, and we're innovating faster than anyone thought possible." Elon paused, letting the weight of his words settle in. "As for Rivian, yes, we've had some disagreements. But we've also accomplished great things together. This partnership is not over, but moving forward, we will operate independently. We will do so in a way that benefits both companies and, more importantly, the world. The road to sustainability is long, but we're committed to walking it, together or apart." With that, Elon stepped back, signaling the end of the press conference. He didn't need to say more. The world needed to know that Tesla was still on course, still pushing for the future. The words were out there, and now the work would begin. Back at Tesla's headquarters, the team was abuzz with the news. Elon's statement had resonated with the investors and the media alike. The pressure was still there, but Tesla had shown its resilience. In a matter of hours, the stock price climbed. Elon had done what was needed, not just for Tesla, but for the industry as a whole. But as the day wore on, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The storm hadn't passed. It had merely shifted direction. He knew there would be more battles ahead. Rivian wasn't the only company in the fight for the future of sustainable energy. And Tesla had a long road ahead to prove it could lead the way. That night, as Elon walked through the Tesla campus, he looked up at the stars. They were distant, unreachable, just like the future he was working toward. But he knew one thing: no matter how tough the road got, Tesla would continue to push forward, lighting the way for the world to follow. Days turned into weeks, and while the storm of betrayal seemed to settle for a moment, Elon knew that a battle had only just begun. Rivian's leadership was in disarray, and the world was watching closely, wondering if Tesla's confidence in its own future was the real deal or just a facade covering cracks that might eventually break open. Elon stood before his team in the war room, a glass conference table gleaming under the harsh lights of the room. Maps of the world and Tesla's global network of energy systems covered the walls. His mind raced through the various strategic options, but there was one thought that kept coming to the forefront: it wasn't just about Tesla's survival anymore. It was about defining the course of human progress. Gwyn, standing beside him, looked over the numbers once more. The investors are still on edge. They want answers, Elon. They want assurances that Rivian's betrayal isn't going to have a domino effect on us. Elon ran his hand through his hair, his brow furrowed. The world is watching us. We can't afford to show weakness. They need to see us not just as a car company, but as the vanguard of a clean energy revolution. If Rivian wants to abandon their role in that vision, that's their choice. But we're not backing down. Gwyn nodded, though her expression was still tense. And the Rivian board? They're already in talks with some of the larger investors. If they pull out, it could set back our timeline. Elon's eyes narrowed. They may be trying to force our hand, but we're not playing their game. We'll move ahead with what we have, and we'll accelerate the timeline for our energy systems rollout. If they think they can intimidate us by withholding resources, they're about to find out just how much power we hold in this fight. As the days went by, Elon and his team worked tirelessly, redoubling their efforts to solidify Tesla's foothold in renewable energy. They would no longer rely on Rivian, not in the same way. They would adapt, accelerate, and leap ahead. Their main focus now: dominate the energy grid and lead the push for global sustainability, showing everyone that their commitment wasn't just limited to electric vehicles. Meanwhile, the news of the fractures between Rivian and Tesla continued to make waves in the industry. Reports circulated that Rivian's investors were growing impatient with their leadership's inability to deliver on promises. The company's stock price began to falter as doubts about the future of the partnership grew louder. Elon had seen this coming, but the speed with which things began to unravel still caught him off guard. He was, of course, watching closely. What was happening at Rivian, especially now that Nathan's betrayal was exposed, could offer some new opportunities for Tesla. Elon knew that the best way to play the hand they were dealt was not to ignore Rivian but to move forward with an understanding that things were about to change dramatically. The Rivian gambit was risky, but it could be the key to securing Tesla's future dominance. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling set of meetings, Elon sat down for a private conversation with Gwyn. There was a sense of urgency between them now, one that had not been present before. "Elon, we need to talk strategy," Gwyn said, sitting down across from him. "If we're really going to move forward with this, it has to be more than just surviving. It's got to be about setting the bar for the entire industry. We can't afford to only react to what's happening with Rivian." "I know," Elon replied. His voice was low but determined. "I've been thinking about the long-term vision. Rivian's collapse is unfortunate, but it opens doors. We can leap ahead and accelerate our energy solutions to a scale we hadn't considered before. But we need to make a statement." Gwyn raised an eyebrow. "A statement?" "Elon," she said, "the world needs to know that Tesla's vision is unshakable. Not just about electric cars, but about a future where renewable energy isn't just possible, it's inevitable. I want us to take bold steps. It's time to launch a new initiative. Something that can't be ignored. Something that shows we're not just reactive, we're leading." Elon leaned forward, his eyes alight with a familiar spark. "I think it's time for Tesla to launch the world's first fully integrated global energy system. Not just solar panels or battery packs, an entire ecosystem. From the grid to the homes, to the vehicles. Everything working together. Imagine a world where every energy source is interconnected, seamless, and self-sustaining. That's what we can build. A new energy future. A fully integrated Tesla grid that could dominate the market and provide a glimpse of a world free from reliance on fossil fuels. It was audacious, but Elon was never one to shy away from that. It was what Tesla had always been about, thinking bigger and bolder than anyone else. "We'll call it Tesla Global," Elon said, as if the name had already formed in his mind. "We will not only provide clean energy through our cars and solar products, but we will also create a renewable energy grid that can power entire cities. We'll make it so seamless, so efficient, that no one will even think about relying on the old power grids anymore." Gwyn smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "That's a game changer, Elon. It's bold. It's exactly what Tesla needs right now. But we have to do it quickly. Rivian might be collapsing, but their competitors aren't standing still. If we don't move fast, we risk losing our chance to dominate the energy sector." Elon stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the Tesla campus. It was a beautiful day, the sun setting behind the gleaming solar panels scattered across the roof. He could already see the future, the way Tesla could shape it, no longer just cars, but the world's energy solution. "We'll do it," he said, voice filled with determination. "We're not just changing the car industry. We're changing everything." Within days, Tesla announced the launch of Tesla Global, its fully integrated global energy system that would combine electric vehicles, solar power, and battery storage in one seamless ecosystem. The news shook the world. The future of energy was no longer just a dream, it was a reality. And Tesla was at the forefront. The investors, who had once questioned Tesla's sustainability and future prospects, rallied behind the vision. The press buzzed with excitement over the bold move, and analysts predicted that this was the kind of disruptive innovation the world had been waiting for. But Elon knew that the hard work was just beginning. The challenges were immense, coordinating the vast network of energy systems, working with governments, securing partnerships, but for the first time in a long while Elon felt something that he hadn't felt in years: hope. Hope that they could truly change the world. And in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but think about Nathan. Rivian's betrayal might have pushed him to make this move, but Tesla was about to soar higher than ever before. The announcement of Tesla Global reverberated around the world. Headlines screamed about Tesla's audacious leap into the future of clean energy, leaving competitors reeling. Investors who had once doubted Elon's vision now rallied behind him, their confidence renewed. The press was filled with excitement, debates, and analysis, but Elon was focused on one thing: execution. In the weeks that followed, the team worked around the clock to lay the groundwork for Tesla's new initiative. There was a sense of urgency in the air, every meeting, every decision felt pivotal. They weren't just building a new product. They were reshaping the very foundation of how the world would produce and consume energy. Elon sat at his desk, staring at the projections on his screen. The numbers were promising, but they were only the beginning. The real challenge lay in connecting the dots, linking Tesla's electric vehicles, solar products, and energy storage solutions into a unified, global grid. This was no small feat, and it would take more than just innovation. It would take collaboration, partnerships, and, above all, trust. Gwyn walked in, her face a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "Elon, we've got the first pilot cities lined up. San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin. We're going to begin integrating our systems into their energy grids. It'll be the first test run for Tesla Global. If it works, the world will take notice." Elon nodded, his eyes fixed on the data. "This is just the beginning. We need to ensure that every element is flawless. The world has never seen anything like this before. We're not just selling products, we're selling a vision of the future. And if it fails, we don't just lose Tesla. We lose everything we've worked for." Gwyn paused for a moment, her voice softening. "Elon, I know you're pushing hard, but you can't carry all this alone. We have a team of incredible people who are fully committed. You've led us to this point, and now it's time to let the team shine." Elon looked up at her, meeting her gaze. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, a mix of weariness and resolve. I know. But the stakes have never been higher. We're redefining the future, Gwyn. This isn't just about Tesla anymore. It's about every person who believes in what we're doing. We have a chance to change the world. Meanwhile, Rivian was in full crisis mode. The company's stock had plummeted after the fallout from their broken partnership with Tesla, and whispers of internal chaos were flooding the media. Nathan, once a trusted engineer at Rivian, had become a symbol of the company's internal struggles. No one could deny that the rupture in Tesla's relationship with Rivian had played a major role in the collapse of their confidence. Elon had heard the rumors, but he didn't care. He had made his peace with the betrayal. It was the future that mattered now. A few days after the announcement of Tesla Global, Elon received an unexpected message. It was from Nathan. The email was brief but to the point. I owe you an apology. I made a mistake, and I've seen the potential in Tesla's new direction. If there's ever a chance for redemption, I'd like to help. I understand if you can't trust me, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. Elon stared at the screen for a long moment, the decision weighing heavily on him. Nathan had been a crucial part of Tesla's original vision. His technical genius had helped shape the early days of the company. But Nathan had also betrayed that trust. Could he really bring himself to welcome him back? After a few minutes of contemplation, Elon typed a simple response: let's talk. Come to the Tesla headquarters in 2 days. We'll discuss next steps. The day Nathan arrived at Tesla's headquarters, the mood was tense. It wasn't just about whether or not Nathan could help with Tesla Global, it was about whether he could truly regain Elon's trust. Elon met him in the same conference room where so many decisions had been made in the past. Nathan looked worn, his suit slightly disheveled, a far cry from the confident, eager engineer he had once been. Nathan extended his hand, but there was a hesitation in his eyes. Elon, I can't begin to express how sorry I am. I thought I was doing what was best for Rivian. But I see now that I was wrong. You were right all along. I got lost in the competition, but I never should have betrayed you. I just wanted to prove myself. Elon studied Nathan for a long moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Nathan, you were a part of the team that made Tesla what it is. You contributed to the vision. But you also crossed a line. And I'm not sure I can just forget that. Nathan nodded, accepting the reality of his mistake. I understand. But if you're willing to give me another chance, I can help. I know how Rivian thinks. I can guide us through the difficulties we're facing with our energy grid rollout. I can make sure we stay ahead of the curve. Elon sat back in his chair, the silence thick between them. Could he really bring Nathan back into the fold? His mind raced through the possibilities. There was no denying Nathan's brilliance, he could be an invaluable asset. But trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. Finally, Elon spoke. You'll have one chance. If you prove yourself, you'll have a place at Tesla again. But I won't tolerate any more mistakes. Nathan's face lit up with gratitude, but Elon could see the weight of his past actions still pressing on him. It wouldn't be an easy path for Nathan, but perhaps, with time, they could rebuild what had been lost. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. With Nathan's help, Tesla made significant strides in integrating their energy systems into the cities they had selected for the pilot program. The systems began to work seamlessly, providing electricity through a network of interconnected Tesla products. Solar energy flowed freely, battery storage was optimized, and electric vehicles moved from city to city, each plugged into the system that now connected them all. The results were groundbreaking. In just a few short months, Tesla had successfully demonstrated the viability of Tesla Global, and the world took notice. Elon watched as the first test cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin, publicly embraced the change. People began to see that the future Elon had promised wasn't just a dream, it was a reality. And Tesla wasn't just a car company anymore. They were the leaders of the global clean energy revolution. The market responded. Tesla's stock soared, breaking new records, and investors who had been skeptical about Tesla Global were now fully on board. Elon had done it. He had weathered the storm, overcome the betrayal, and led his company to a new, brighter future. As the sun set on another day at Tesla headquarters, Elon stood by his office window, looking out at the campus. The world was changing. And Tesla was leading the way. Nathan, now fully integrated into the team, stood beside him. "We did it, Elon," he said quietly. Elon turned to him, a rare smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Yeah. We did. But this is just the beginning." It was late one evening when Elon finally stepped away from his desk and took a moment to absorb what had been accomplished. The energy systems were now working seamlessly across the pilot cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin. The results were undeniable. The world had seen Tesla's bold new vision for global energy, and they were beginning to embrace it. The challenges had been immense, but the team had risen to the occasion, turning a groundbreaking idea into a powerful reality. But as Elon walked through the quiet halls of Tesla's headquarters, something gnawed at him. Despite everything they had achieved, he felt like there was still so much more to do. The vision wasn't just about revolutionizing transportation and energy in cities, it was about creating a future where the entire world could thrive in harmony with the environment. He had promised a cleaner, more sustainable future. And now that the world was watching, he couldn't afford to rest on his laurels. There was always the next step, the next horizon to reach. Inside the war room, the mood was focused but upbeat. Gwyn, Nathan, and several of the senior executives gathered around the table, discussing the next steps for Tesla Global. Elon had already outlined his vision for expanding the network to global cities and rural areas alike, but it was clear that the task would be massive. "We've made incredible progress in just a few months," Gwyn began, her voice steady, "but now we need to plan for scaling. What happens when we need to expand beyond these pilot cities? How do we ensure that Tesla Global can be replicated in cities and regions around the world?" Nathan, looking more confident than he had in a long time, leaned forward. "It's all about infrastructure. We've got to build a grid that can handle the load, integrate it with local power networks, and make sure the system remains efficient. It won't be easy, but I think we can do it." Elon nodded, his mind already working through the logistics. He had always believed that a global energy solution could change the world, but now, the weight of that responsibility had sunk in. It wasn't just about creating the technology, it was about making sure it reached every corner of the globe, every person, and every community that needed it. "Okay," Elon said, breaking his silence. "The next phase will require a strategic partnership with governments. If we're going to create a new energy system for the world, we need their cooperation. We need to make sure that Tesla Global isn't just seen as a business initiative, it's seen as a global movement. A necessary revolution." He turned to Gwyn. "Gwyn, you've got the experience with international negotiations. I need you to start opening doors with leaders around the world. Start with the EU, Asia, and parts of South America. If we're going to truly disrupt the energy market, we need to build coalitions. We need to align with governments who want to push for cleaner, renewable energy. We can't do this alone." Gwyn nodded, already pulling out her tablet to take notes. "I'll get started right away." Elon's gaze shifted to Nathan. "And Nathan, I need you to oversee the technical expansion. We're talking about scaling this system to the global level. We need engineers on the ground in every region, helping to customize the infrastructure to fit local needs while ensuring the system stays integrated and efficient." Nathan smiled, a genuine sense of purpose in his eyes. "Got it, Elon. I'm ready." In the coming weeks, the race to expand Tesla Global took shape. Teams were formed, led by Elon, Gwyn, Nathan, and other key members of the Tesla leadership team. Each division took on a specific task, some focused on negotiating with local governments, while others built the technological infrastructure to expand the reach of the energy grid. It was an ambitious, high-stakes mission, but there was no doubt that it was exactly what the world needed. As the weeks turned into months, the effects of Tesla Global began to spread. Tesla's clean energy products, solar panels, Powerwall systems, and electric vehicles, were integrated into entire energy grids, and soon other countries began to take notice. The world was starting to understand that the future Elon had promised wasn't just a possibility, it was becoming a reality. But just as things were beginning to fall into place, a new challenge arose. Rivian, still reeling from its earlier missteps and failures, began to regroup. They announced new partnerships with traditional automakers and energy companies, and the media quickly picked up on their efforts to regain market share. Elon knew that while Tesla's position was strong, they couldn't afford to ignore the competition. Elon's mind raced as he absorbed the news. Rivian might be struggling now, but they were far from finished. And with the resources of traditional automotive giants behind them, they would be formidable opponents. But Elon wasn't one to back down from a challenge. In fact, he saw it as an opportunity. The world was changing rapidly. In a few short years, Tesla Global could become the standard for energy production and consumption. But that wouldn't happen without fierce competition, and Elon was prepared for it. He stood before his team, ready to face the next phase of their journey. Rivian may be down, but they're not out. And they've got resources, partnerships, and determination. But so do we. We have the vision, the technology, and the team. Tesla's future isn't just about winning this battle, it's about defining the future of the entire energy industry. Elon turned to Nathan, Gwyn, and the others, their faces reflecting the same fire that burned within him. We're going to take it to the next level. We're not just building cars or energy grids. We're building a new world. And no one, is going to stand in our way. The room erupted in a quiet but determined applause. It was clear to everyone in the room, the revolution was just beginning. They weren't done yet. As Elon stood alone in his office later that night, watching the city lights twinkle below, he couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought him here. From the early days of Tesla, struggling to get the first electric cars off the ground, to the creation of Tesla Global, the journey had been anything but easy. He had lost people along the way. He had faced setbacks, betrayals, and obstacles that had seemed insurmountable at times. But in the end, Elon Musk had always known one thing, that true innovation, real change, didn't come without challenges. The road was long, the work never-ending. But it was worth it. Because in the end, he wasn't just changing industries, he was changing the world. And as the night sky stretched above him, Elon knew that their greatest challenges were still ahead. But he was ready. Tesla Global was just the beginning. The future was wide open. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?